I hope you're doing well. Hope you're still being part of this sort of 4 year sort of celebration that I've been doing. Yesterday I had Martin A. Johnson and Tim Kelly from Tim and Bob, and Saturday, I think Friday I went live. So it's just been a marathon. So, but tonight I'm welcoming back a guest who joined me a couple of months ago. I think just around December. So, and he is producer, singer, songwriter, musician. Part of he was part of George Parliament Funkadelic and a lot of different things. But anyway, I'm going to bring in Law on, and we're going to talk about a number of different things. I hope you enjoy and take part.
Hey,
Hey, how you doing?
what's going on, man? Good to see you again. How you been?
Yes, it's yeah, good to see you. What have you been up to over the past couple of months?
Oh, what haven't I been up to? It's recording 5 different albums, including one with Grammy award-winning bassist John Patitucci. So that's a pride project for me as a jazz fusion head to be able to flex those skills for a second time working with John Patitucci. I mean, everybody can't say that, man. So it's a blessing on all degrees. Plus some other stuff we got coming. Me and my best friend, my longtime partner, co-conspirator of the whole Planet Soul movement, my DJ, Khalif Wins. We just finished the EP that's going to come out in a couple of weeks. So it's been a lot. And then of course, as always, shows upon shows upon shows. You know, we stay working, man. So
Yes, okay. Anyway, yeah, we're going to go into that and a number of things. But before then, I know that you are a big fan of New Edition and also part of the, the good,
better believe it. Come on now.
good friends with them and stuff. Did you get to go to their Vegas residency?
Yes, I did. I went to. Funny that you asked. You said the thing about work, because the funny thing is that I caught the very first Vegas show because my schedule was already looking crazy 2 weeks after that. Because normally for most of the fans that know me, whether they're any for lifers or any part of the fan bases that they attach me with because of my relationships with some of them, is I usually go to like 5 or 6 or 7 shows on the guys that mean the most to me. So the thing is, I'm like, okay, Lord, not this time around. You can only get to go to one for that particular moment, so you better make it the first show. And I'm so glad I did. But yeah, as always, my big brothers slam every show that I've ever been to. I've been to the first tour to this tour, so
Yeah, but I mean, what was it like being restricted to the Vegas stage compared to when they've been on the road and doing those arena tours? I mean, was it a very different vibe? Were they going doing more Vegas old school stuff, or were they still? What was the difference?
the only difference really is because, like you said, they attached the personal intimacy of the New Edition parts. Like anybody that's ever went to go see any of the guys, whether it was Belviv DeVoe or Johnny Gill, it's basically now they're bringing that to a Vegas stage because it's more intimate. It's up in your face, and of course, usually when we go to arenas, there's room to move around. I mean, there was still room to move around and all that stuff, but it was still a different thing as to where that would be what it was supposed to be. So I was just looking at it from a perspective as, okay, this is kind of personal. This is different. So, but at the same time, the energy was still there. So you still feel like you're at the arena. You know what I mean?
Do you think that the whole Vegas stuff is not just limited to New Edition, but the whole Vegas stuff is a little overhyped because everyone wants to go there playing in a small little venue. It's a little small or big, and they're probably better served to do a massive arena tour because you're around the city. I mean, what's just your thoughts?
Well, I mean, let's go back to the 80s for a second. Usually when you think of Vegas, it used to be the kiss of death
Yeah,
for a lot of artists, especially if you were in the pop, R&B, soul, jazz, whatever. Now, mind you, me having the love that I have for all of my heroes of all genres, I never saw it as a kiss to death. But because of the way the industry has always been built to be like, well, you're only as good as your last hit. There's this new stuff happening now, and y'all guys, depending on who you are, y'all guys are just old. Y'all guys are just here. This is the final stop for you. And what I love is that we have took that power once again. When I say we, I say black artists. We have took the power once again and used it for the benefit of using Vegas as even a bigger tool, especially for some of the artists who have already toured the world and been around and stuff like that. So then we proven, especially Usher, we proved that this is not the last stop, because Usher, if he would have never did the Super Bowl, just him, the Vegas shows he's been doing for the last couple of years have been winning. I mean, the thing is that his fan base never really wavered or died down, because if he didn't want to do Vegas, Usher could easily just tour the world and just do all his hits and put out a new album. Some fans will buy, get into it, and then come right
Yeah.
back to Vegas. But the thing is that when people like Wu-Tang, New Edition, Jodeci, that's the ones that have been doing a lot of the Vegas stuff now. Because the thing is
Yeah.
just that, it's like they're riding the bandwagon. Let them. Because guess what? All it does is continue tradition, and it builds more clientele. And honestly, the fan bases get even bigger, because there are people that have came to see all of those groups who I mentioned that had never seen them live in their heyday, or never had a chance to experience them up front, like a lot of us diehard fans who have been to every one of those tours or any one of those shows. So I think it's a beautiful thing. I think we took the power of what the industry have always relegated or delegated Vegas to be. The same thing with the internet. Remember when the internet first came out, record labels hated it. It was like, oh, fuck the internet. Now, the last 30 years, we have changed the whole landscape of how the internet could be used. So it's the same thing for Las Vegas. I feel like if anybody can do that, and be on those world stages and come there in the middle of the West Coast in the desert and do these shows, and fans that come from all around the world. I've seen people come from Australia, from Austria, just to come and see New Edition and Jodeci. You know what I mean? So
Okay. Are you going to go back? I think they're going back
July,
soon.
yes, I'm going back. I'm going back for at least 2 or 3 shows in July. I'm gonna go see them.
Okay. Do you get to meet the guys after the show, or when you're there, or you're just in the audience and leave?
You said, do I get to meet them?
Yeah, would you
Oh,
when you go?
that's mandated. You gotta remember, we go, we go back like what 20 something years in terms of my relationships with Ralph and Biv and Ronnie. So the thing is, that's already that's a whole story within itself. But the thing is just that we love each other so much, in terms of how I feel about my heroes slash big brothers. Every chance we get, there have been moments where literally after the show or in between it, like the culture. I'm gonna give you a little quick story on the culture tour, the first one they did after being apart for 6 years. I was backstage most of the time. It was me, Donnie Wahlberg, my boy Flav, Eric B, from Eric B and Rakim, and we were just hanging. And the thing was just that I had a moment. I hadn't seen Bobby in a minute. Last time I saw Bobby, he was in New York, so he was on break. They do the rearranging where he comes out and does a solo song and he goes back, and I saw Bobby sitting there. And I ran up on Bob. I'm like, just for a minute, I'm like, what up, B? He's like, oh, shoot, Lord. I said, dude, don't let nobody tell you different. You're doing excellent. Because he is, Bobby's doing excellent, man. I promise you. And I'm just like, don't let this media, none of this shit fool you. You are doing great for what you've been able to withstand all that time. He said, thank you, Lord. I know it. I'm like, you better know it. And that was a moment, you know what I mean? Because when we get those moments like that, because, I let it be known all the time. That's my personal time. Whatever time I get with them, whether it's us hanging out, I got so many stories of times and moments that I hung out with my big brothers after the show, or at Hula Hands in Jersey. The last this one's for me in Utah, which was in 2016. It's so many stories I can grab out. But yeah, usually for the most part, I think it was probably only 1 or 2 shows I didn't get a chance to do, because it was a crazy schedule. They had to run and go do another one and fly out or ride the bus before they started getting things together. Because New Edition has always had a very interesting balancing beam of management coming in and doing different things, or different things happening to where certain things had to be aligned. I mean, we've all seen the movie, we've all heard the stories. The movie left a lot of shit out. I'll be honest with you, it left a lot of stuff out.
What
And the
do you
thing is
mean?
just that,
What do you mean? It left a lot of things out.
they left a lot of stuff out. Oh yeah. I got the permission from Ralph and Biv to live tweet on Twitter when the movie came out, the 3-part series. Like, because I said, do I have permission to tell the stuff that might have been left out? And they're like, go right ahead, man. It's the real. I'm like, okay, I just want to get your permission first. I don't want to just go ahead and start tweeting stuff. There's a lot of stuff that left out.
What did you tweet then? So what did you make public back in?
Well, I made public of the fact that Candy Girl was not the first song recorded for the album. Let's get that part straight. Jealous Girl was the first song recorded, and of course that's Bobby Brown singing lead. Ralph doesn't even come on that song until the last part. There's a jealous girl. That's Ralph, but all that other lead stuff, that's all Bobby. But people don't focus on that. And in the movie, they just show Bobby and Ricky fighting in the studio. I'm like, that's only minimal. I'm like, nah, they skipped over a whole bunch of stuff. Not to mention the fact they also left out the fact that contrary to what the movie gave off, Ronnie and Mike sings on the Christmas album. They sang most of the leads. A lot of people don't, unless you're a diehard fan like me and you and people that know the history, you really wouldn't know. And the thing is that they always sang backup. On my favorite New Edition song is actually Marianne on the second album. You know, people don't realize that that's all 5 members singing lead, including Ronnie and Biv. Ronnie and Biv sing the bridge. I know my life won't be the same, and if you hear me call your name, that's Ronnie and Biv singing. But people like, oh, but why they always feel like they don't sing? I said, well, they're not principal lead singers. They get a couple of lines here and there and things like that. And to be honest with you, Biv had the better tone, but Ronnie had more leads than Biv did. If you look at all the New Edition albums, Ronnie always get about 2 or 3 at least. You know what I mean? And the thing is, though, but they don't talk about this stuff because they always put the center attraction on what people would like to believe. And plus, they also left out the fact that Ralph, even though he didn't know that Johnny Gill was brought into the group, as we saw the story about the heartbreak situation, but the whole thing was they left out the part that Biv already went to Gerald Busby. He's like, we got a new member of the group. He said, we got Johnny Gill. He said, oh, that's awesome, man. He said, okay, where's Ralph? And Biv couldn't tell Gerald Busby about what was going on because, you know, what happened with him and Ralph and all that stuff. Like, Ralph was kind of working on some solo stuff, even though he never said he was leaving the group. But then Gerald Busby said, this is a great idea. I'm glad you got Johnny Gill in the group, but we need the voice. And of course, as we know, the voice is Ralph. He didn't know how he was going to tell him that. Meanwhile, you know, Ralph was just recording his solo album, and then he got coaxed into, okay, I'm going to do this Heartbreak album. I'll go ahead and do it. And then he gets to Minneapolis. You know the rest. He finds out that Johnny's in the group. He didn't know anything about it.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and of course, they showed that scene. I'm so glad that they showed that scene because that's what actually happened. When he came in, he thought Johnny was just there to do some work with Jimmy and Terry because, you know, they all knew each other. He's like, oh, what up, Johnny? Like, okay, what are you doing here? And then Jimmy Jam looking at, you know, like, hold up, wait a minute, hold up. Y'all didn't tell Ralph. And Ralph was, and all hell broke loose. You saw it. You saw the movie. All hell broke loose. It was even worse than what they depicted it. It was about to go down, literally. So, yeah. So, anyway, long story short, that's just a few of the things that they left out of the movie, you know, just in terms of what went into it. And not to mention, even though the Home Again tour was what it was, I went to the first 4 shows of the Home Again tour. The first 4 shows were excellent. There was a lot. There were a lot more, and Ralph will tell you that himself. Like, there were a lot of great memories on the. It wasn't all the way bad. I mean, of course, the business side of it, and then of course the last show when Bobby and Biz got into it, you know, it eventually happened. But the majority of the Home Again tour in the first 2 or 3 months was actually solid. That's actually my favorite tour, my favorite album, the whole bit. So
yeah, I was in college in Milwaukee in '97 during the Home Again tour.
Okay.
Went up for them. Keith Sweat was supposed to come, but he went to Chicago. Then Blackstreet.
Oh, you missed the Keith? Oh, wow.
I missed
Keith Sweat and Blackstreet.
And Blackstreet. So I was I'm a massive Teddy fan. So seeing Blackstreet, the whole Big No Diggity, so I was really excited about that.
Blackstreet killed. I mean, that whole tour was though. Everybody was good. 702 was great. Keith Sweat was always great. You know, but Blackstreet, you know, they're like, I call them the Enigma because they were such a different paraphrase because it's very rare that you have a group where you change members and it's still good, if not better.
Yeah, that was strange. Yeah, but I was just saying, I remember Blackstreet. They did the first time I heard the whole No Diggity Billie Jean remix and stuff.
Yes.
So you know, I was excited with Blackstreet, and I said, okay, I could go home now. And then New Edition come out, and you get Bobby doing his set, you get Johnny Gill doing his set. You get BBD doing their set, then you get Ralph doing his set, then you get all 6 of them coming back in, and it was just like mind blowing just to see. And I thought you guys are on because you've got 4 groups, Yeah, that's Ralph, Johnny,
Yeah.
Bobby, and and BBD. So you've got actually five. Then you've got New Edition. So that's five of y'all. So it's just like who opens up, who does the middle, who closes it. You could have
Who,
just
who,
done. You could have done a 3 hour tour.
I was gonna say, imagine me in that state in '96, because considering that was my first show as a kid. You know, the whole thing,
Okay.
watching them, as I told you
Yeah,
last
yeah,
time we talked. Even though Prince, MJ, the Jacksons, Stevie Wonder, James Brown, Jimi Hendrix, Marcy in the time, those are my first primary heroes, but they were all adults. So when New Edition came on the scene, it spoke directly, even though they're older than me, but they were still just like me and my brothers. Like, they know that you look at the Popcorn Love video, that's the way we dress. If you're from the projects or from the hood, but to see them singing and rapping and dancing the way that me and my cousins were, it spoke directly to us as kids, as teens. So the thing is,
yeah.
that's 83. Here I am in 96. I'm in my second year in college. I already started doing so. This is literally like probably 3 years before I would end up joining Parliament Funkadelic, but I was still making my rounds in New York doing shows with my uncle's band at places like Lola's, La Bar Band. It's all New York clubs that we played the corporate gigs at. And the thing is, I brought a lot of the R&B and hip hop to those places. So all this time I'm watching all of my New Edition heroes do all their solo stuff, and I'm loving every minute of it. I'm buying the first album. I tell Biv all the time, I say, I don't give a damn what nobody says. Hootie Mac was the shit. I love it. I'm like, Hootie Mac was dope to me, because the thing is, I understood as a producer and a songwriter, I'm different from the average fan, because I listen to everything. I don't just get into my feelings as a fan. I'm an artist, so I'm just listening to what's different from this album than the Poison album. Of course, Poison is the animal you can't beat. Nobody's beating that. But the thing is that Hootie Mac, from an artistry standpoint, I felt was an excellent second album for a group like them to have in that section. Same thing with Johnny Gill's Provocative, which was more like his fourth album. But and of course, I tell all the people all the time, Bobby Brown's best album is Bobby, with Getaway. Two Can Play That Game. That influenced my vocal style the most, actually, out of all of Bobby's albums. And the thing is, now here we are, and now we have been asking for the last 10 years. I'm like, at some point, these guys got to get back together. I knew they weren't broken up. I just said the right opportunity has to happen. So imagine my face when I'm sitting at home and the world premiere for Hit Me Off comes on. I screamed. You don't understand, bro. I screamed. And cause I knew now with all six members, it reminded me so much of the Temptations when David Ruffin and Dennis Edwards came back.
When
they just stand on top. And the same circumstances. The first 3 months were good, and then David Ruffin started acting the fool. A la Bobby. So the thing is, to see them come back with all six members, stronger voices, stronger harmonies. Then you get to see Bobby and Johnny trade all vocal bars. I loved every section of it. The dance steps were sicker, and you had Chucky Booker and DOA Allen as the music directors. You can't lose with that.
Yeah.
So I was amped. You gotta understand. I was screaming just as loud as the girls were, because the thing for me, again, as a young kid who put all of his time learning every single member of the group to be sufficient for all of my personal situations with my own musical stuff. And here we are. I'm at Madison Square Garden, and I'm beaming with pride. I'm just like, look at my boys looking good, man. I'm like, these guys look good. The steps are still sick. And I'm with the crowd on every movement of the damn show. Then Bobby come out and does his set. Jay-Z come out and do my for about 6 minutes, because he's going to go off. He's going to act the fool. And for me, and I tell them all the time, the album, the tour, the whole, even though it ended the way it ended with all the drama and all the shit that went down, for me, it pretty much always stamped what I always say about don't ever count anybody out in this business, because the thing is that it had been 10 years. And all these other groups that were influenced by them had came and took over. Boyz II Men, all the guys who they influenced. And here comes New Edition, like, we just here to remind you where y'all all got it from. We just here to remind you we're still the kings of this shit. And the Home Again tour and album and all that stuff going on, it's still their biggest selling album. I think it sold 2-3 million copies. Yeah. And the thing is, I think that it solidified their place forever, even though we wouldn't get another album from them as a group until like another, probably 5 or 6 years later, with the whole One Love album.
Yeah. That was rubbish. I won't say rubbish, but I think they were chasing. They didn't. I'm sure they didn't like it, but yeah, they had some good tracks on it. but there was
I
a
can tell you this much, because that's
go
when me
ahead.
and Ralph really got close. Because the thing is, that's 2004, 2003. Because I remember when they first made the announcement. Because this is when me and them started really getting a chance to hang out. You know, I just met Biv on a personal level, so we were all. I was the one that was actually telling Ralph about the sales of because we're gonna get hot tonight. Because they didn't know what was going on, but I was, as you know, I was in the clubs. I'm hanging out in all the different clubs around New York City. So I was the one calling Ralph and telling him, I'm like, yo, I said, yo, they showing a lot of love for that album and the song. And I wasn't lying to them because I was there. I'm reporting to him and Biv, telling them that the song is in a lot of love, despite with all the efforts of the marketing and the promotion and all of that. But I've always said, the One Love album is actually a great album. It stands a couple of songs, like a few songs. I was like, that's okay. But the majority of it, I felt that the producers understood how to monopolize how New Edition sound in this era. Because you gotta remember, when you have timeless voices like Ricky Bell and Johnny and Ralph, and then you got Ronnie and Biv adding their raps and their little vocal parts and stuff like that. The best songs on that album was the stuff that Jam and Lewis produced. Not to mention the other stuff that they sound great on top of. Because not a lot of groups have that young essence that New Edition has, and that's because they never stopped. A lot of other groups from their era, they couldn't sing over songs like that. I promise you, New Edition is the only group that can pull off the mixing the old with the new, being upgraded but still staying true to who they are. Like Johnny Gill said, listen, we're open to try new things, but we can't be something that we're not. We are grown men. This is what it is. We've always had a youthful appeal because we just kept the energy of what we do. But we're grown ass men. We're not teenagers anymore. We don't have to be 113. That's a shot at 112. You said we're not 113. You know, we're New Edition. And I
Yeah, there were
get
some
that.
songs. Yeah, there were some songs that I thought, especially some of the Stevie J songs. I thought, yeah, that was probably they were recorded for New Edition for 112, and they just said, let's give it to these guys. I mean, I
Yeah.
like the song "That's Why I Lied" with Ralph singing. I
Oh,
thought that was.
woo!
I love that song. I wish
Boy,
they
you better
released that as
stop.
a single.
Every chance listen, you gotta remember me and you know. Let me just say, I love all six of my big brothers, but as you know, like I told you, I'm really really close to Ralph and Bit, because you gotta remember most of my situations, I'm pretty much Ralph or Bobby, because the mixture of the extreme voices and then the dance and stuff. But I tell Ralph all the time, that's why I lied. In my opinion, if
Yeah,
you had to have a top 10 of Ralph Tresvant's greatest performances on wax, that's in my top 5.
yeah. Now that was. I mean, that's. I mean, the production. I thought released that as a single, and it would have blown up. I don't know why
Even
they
just
didn't
the
release.
nuances. There's no kisses from you when I know about the minute. There's no. I'm like, yeah, I said, because Ralph is always flawless to me. Because Ralph just has a texture. People don't understand, and I know his regimen. I'm not going to give that away, but just understand that Ralph is very particular about how he record, and it's been that way since the first solo album he did. Even with Living in a Dream prior to the Ralph Tresvant album, Ralph is very particular about his tone, certain runs that he do, and of course, me and him have a knack for layering our harmonies. If you listen to some of my stuff, and most of the time that just comes from all the guys that we like Marvin Gaye and Smokey Robinson and people of that nature that knew how to layer certain parts of their vocals and make it match. And I got to say, Ralph is probably one of the most flawless individuals when it comes to layering his own harmonies. I love it. Like Money Can't Buy You Love. His harmonies on that is ridiculous.
Yeah, bro, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love it. So I'm glad you. This is why me and you are brothers, because we think a lot alike. You pick the one song that I always tell them about. I'm like, dude,
Yeah,
that
that's
song
why.
does it
Oh,
for
it's
me
a.
every damn time.
Yeah, I mean, guys, I wish you guys. I mean, we've got some. I don't know if you're able to see the comments here.
I think I am. I see something. Oh, I see my peeps in there. What up, y'all? I see y'all. Hey guys. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but if you haven't, I mean, I think the One Love album, as I said, I think Bad Boy. I wish they'd gone to a different, better label. Um, but Jam and Lewis gave some solid songs. But check out "That's Why I Lied" by Ralph. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing.
Oh, can I be honest real quick? Let me be honest with you. The thing about the One Love album, let me say this because a lot of people don't say it very often. The thing about the One Love album,
It,
is, thank God for it, because if it wasn't for the One Love album, New Edition would have been stuck in more industry turmoil. they own their name now because they got free. In order at that time, you know who, once he made the move and got them off the label, that's the one good thing that he did do. He made sure New Edition got their name back, and he freed them of all the other stuff that they were signed to under MCA, because as we all learned, that was a horrible contract. You dig what I'm saying? So thank God for that album. Uh-oh. Did he freeze? I don't know. Hey, y'all, we see y'all guys. What's going on? Make sure it's not mine.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I was.
There we go.
Yeah,
we back.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. Yeah, so okay, sorry about that, guys.
About One Love? You heard what I said?
Yeah, I was just telling people that, you know, there was some, they had one or two. It did feel in some cases, especially the Bad Boy production tracks, felt like it was a 112 type of stuff. However, you get some of the middle stuff, especially with Jam and Lewis doing the production and stuff, and that's why I lied. So yeah, check out that album. And
yeah, that album has some. I mean, like I said, there's only 2 songs I didn't like. Not to mention, there were a lot of other songs that were left off. I have some of the bonus unreleased tracks from that album. I promise you. Like Dream Girl was dopest. I think Ryan Leslie wrote that one too. Dream Girl. It's another one that they had too. If you look at the behind closed doors thing that they had for that album run, it's on YouTube now. There was a lot of stuff left off, and I felt like if they would have accumulated that and put some of that on another album or so, it could have stretched out to that. Because you have to also remember too, even though we love our legends, it could be New Edition, it could be any group, it could be Troop. There's a part that still has to be current. When I say current, I don't mean do what everybody else is doing. I mean that you can take the classic sound of who you are and upgrade it. And I think New Edition did a very good job with that with One Love. Like I said, only a couple of songs I really didn't care for, but the majority of that album, I'm like, well, I would expect this. I said, because hearing Johnny Gill, you know, on Who's Gonna Come Home With Me Tonight, I think that's Jam and Lewis, and then start turning me on, but you know, just seeing, and then Love Again with Ricky and Ralph, like that. See, that was a good song. I'm like, see, this is certain things that had that bad boy feel, but this is coming from guys who can really sing and harmonize, as opposed to, okay, well, we're going to have them do this, or this is going to be too forced. And to me, those things didn't sound forced to me. Whereas a couple of other tracks, I'm like, okay, they probably, like you said, they probably did that because they just gave him a leftover song. And I didn't really care for that one too much. Like the last song, I really didn't care for too much on the album. I think it was Leave Me. I didn't really care for that one too much. Everything else, I'm like, yo, it's solid. I was waiting for the next one and just see if they could do even better than what that album did. But of course, as New Edition saga mostly goes, other stuff started happening, and you know.
But knowing them as you do now, do you think they would ever consider going back to the studio, or is it a point where, you know, there's no point, we can just do our solo stuff and we'll just come back as a?
I have some news for you. It's already started. That's all I can say about that.
Okay.
Oh, it started. Oh yeah, they're recording. They're recording. Trust and believe that. I promise you. My right hand of God. They're recording.
Okay. So you've heard this exclusive. You know, we should be, hopefully, you know, before the end of the year or so, we may get a New Edition album. We'll see when it comes together. That would be an amazing thing.
Well, the great thing is, you know, because they are who they are, and more flowers have been given over the last 20 years than they had the 10 years prior to, is that what I love the most about my big brothers is that the same thing with New Kids on the Block as well. Same goes for them. They're at the level where they don't have to respond to the industry on how they should do things. So you got to remember, now, if it was 15, 20 years ago, maybe. But at this stage in the game, I'm proud to say that New Edition is going to do shit on New Edition's time. When it's ready, all 6 members are involved. Everybody is coming together. I mean, if you've seen Johnny Gill's latest interviews, he'll tell you himself. Like it's even more different now than it was even 7 years ago. So the great thing is that they're not on music industry's time card. They're timeless. When you're a timeless artist and you're a legendary artist, you don't have to respond. If you're an independent artist, you don't have to respond to the industry's timetable. You do things and you keep building and accumulating an even bigger fan base. And there's no fan base bigger than that, because you got to remember, it's just 5 groups combined into one. So almost like a thing where they can choose to that. Look, Bell Biv DeVoe's last album was incredible. 3 Stripes, I love that album. See what I mean? And they hadn't done an album since the BBD album that had the hot shit and what's the other one? Breezy. That album was dope too, even though it didn't get pushed the way it was supposed to. But if you are a true Bell Biv DeVoe fan, a New Edition fan, we listen to the albums. We don't care about if that single went number 1. If it goes number 1, great. But if it doesn't go number 1 or top 5 or top 10, I do not give a. It's New Edition. These guys can still sing and move, and they can still record and make better albums than half of these other R&B artists who are out right now. So my thing is, for me, I don't care about that, and I'm glad that they don't care about that either. When they did what's the song that they did on Johnny Gill's record? This One's For Me and You.
Yeah.
That went to number 1. And mind you, that was the first time we heard seeing the name New Edition on the charts was enough for me. I'm like, you know what? This is going to be something to start. So that shows and prove right there. After 10 or 15 years of not having a number 1 record, and then Johnny Gill puts out a record and records with the guys, and it goes number 1. So that puts them in another bracket of, we don't have to do shit on the industry's timetable. We own our stuff now. We own our name. We can put out, because they know that when they put that New Edition album out, once it's done, we're going to go and support them. We ain't going to be trying to compare them to anybody. We like, just bring the album. I just want to hear y'all guys. I tell them all the time, I'm like, I'm just waiting. That's all. I'm just waiting. Y'all ready? Come on with it.
Yeah. I guess just as we wrap up with that, it's what do you then make of how because there was we saw the Bobby documentary, and we know that he's had his health issues and stuff. But there seems to be a lot of love for Bobby, even though he does. I think what's hard is that we know that Johnny was historically the least skillful dancer in the group.
Yeah, he was.
Bobby
no question about that.
Bobby and Ralph were. Yeah, I was surprised how good Ralph could dance. I was really surprised how good Ralph could dance. But because we always saw Bobby as, it was Michael Jackson, it was MC Hammer, it was Bobby Brown. It was almost like back in that 80s or so. It just felt like those were the 3 best dancers out there. And so,
well, you have to break down the components of who dances what, because first of all, Bobby was the best freestyle dancer out of all of them. But in terms of just the overall dance, Ronnie's the king, pretty much. And even Ralph will tell you that. Ronnie is king, because the whole New Edition routine is built upon the fact that, of course, everybody knows that's Brooke Kane is his uncle. Yeah. But the thing is that I've never seen none of the guys really out of step, like in terms of when they first started doing stuff. Johnny had his struggles, but once the Heartbreak Tour happened, Johnny had all the moves down. He worked. He had to work the hardest. But Ronnie is the flawless component in terms of dance when it comes to New Edition. He's flawless. I've never seen Ronnie out of step, but any situation where it didn't look like. Because you gotta remember how as a dancer choreographer myself, as you know, the complexity of those routines are based upon your toes being pointed a certain way, angles in your hands, your shoulders, and then being able to not count to your 8. Because us street dancers, we don't have that normal 1, 2, 3 count. We're very much here, feel the music, vibe of that. There may be a count here, but guess what? We ignoring that shit. We over here. That's Ronnie. We look at Ronnie and Biv and Ricky, because they had to do the most backing work. And then Ralph being flawless, because Ralph was Michael Jackson. Ralph knew how to jump in and out of routines. I always study guys who knew how to jump in the routine, and then when they wasn't singing lead, like when they do You're Not My Kind of Girl, Ralph jumps back in the routine like it's nothing. Same thing with Ricky. Ricky got that one little part in that song. I'm not trying to put you down. But as soon as Ricky's done, Ricky's right back in the routine like he didn't just sing the lead. That's how you know the dance is completely. So now going back to Bobby, what you just said. Look at Bobby now, considering where he was 10 years ago. And the fact that he had to really condition his muscle memory Because muscle memory is the most important thing besides staying in shape. And because as my boy Danny Wood from New Kids on the Block once said, workout shape and performance shape are two different things, but they both go together. So for Bobby, it's the conditioning of his. That's why when he started doing those moves again, I said he's going to cancel at least one show or something's going to happen. You want to know why? Because you got to remember, when you haven't used those muscles like that in a long time, your body's being trained. It's like going to the gym. If you stop going to the gym after 4 or 3 months, what's going to happen? It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. So imagine him not really being active like that. Remember, he was still doing his solo shows, but he wasn't doing all that dance. He's doing more dancing now, and I'm proud. I'm just so proud of my big brother. Like I told you that thing, that moment me and him had. I'm like, listen, to go from where he was, and everybody's like, he gonna lose the weight. I said, he's on tour. You ever been on tour before? I have. You ever been on tour? When you have to do the same routine under hot ass lights with leather jackets and hard bottom shoes, and you're going, you'll get a couple of breaks, as you see. You know, he has a moment where he gets off the stage. He got a moment, gets some water, comes back on stage, has to do now 2 songs in a row, and then has to do steps with his brothers. The thing is, he's conditioning now, because I've seen the last 3 tours. I'm like, Bobby's just getting better and better. He already got his voice back, which is great. He got his voice back, thank God. He's singing flawlessly now. I'm like, that's the Bobby I know vocally. He's back to his shit. But now, the last show he just did to pass the mic, I wasn't there at that one. My friends went. They was like, Bobby showed out. He was doing a running man. He did his stuff. I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm like, see, I love it. I love it, because we have to continue to lift him up and show him, you know what? You done been through hell and high water, and to still be on this stage, standing, performing, and being the badass Bobby Brown that we know you to be. We're going to keep on championing on. While everybody else, when the world condemned him, I prayed for him. You know what I'm saying? It's a difference, because that's, he's a direct component to my style. That's one of my biggest influences. So for me, it's like, I pray for him. I said, even if he don't get all the way back to what he used to be, I'll take 90, 85, or 75% of who he is at this moment. And he's doing great. So.
Okay, I think you highlighted another group that people might be surprised that you have some connection with, and that's New Kids on the Block. What are your thoughts about their comeback?
Oh man, I mean, and of course for New Kids, it was definitely more of a comeback than New Edition. New Edition just came back to be a group. They are never, as Ralph always says, they never broke up. They just said, look, we got an opportunity to do some things. We got to do some solo stuff, and of course, luckily for them, their solo careers gave them more adulation for them to do more stuff until they had to come back to the main source, which is New Edition. New Kids on the Block, not so much, because when they broke up for real. And the thing is that Jordan Knight and Joey solo careers were inevitable, obviously, because they're the two main singers in the group. And the thing is that we saw that happen, but their comeback was something that I knew was going to happen at some point. I remember when Jordan had that song "Give It to You" out, produced by Jam and Lewis. Once again, by the way, shout out to Jimmy Jam and Trey, my Minneapolis legendary uncles. I mean, because the connecting fabric that they have between all the guys who we love, whether it's Alexander O'Neal, SOS Band and Janet and Human League and so many, and even Lionel Richie and Patti LaBelle and stuff that they did for them. It's Jam and Lewis, and I tell every time I'm hanging out with Jimmy, man, I just make sure I have new questions every time I see him. I'm like, what drum machine did you use on someone like Patti LaBelle? And he's like, Lord, be going deep. I'm like, because it's, for me, it's the Sonic. So anyway, the thing is, New Kids, I just knew, and I remember they asked Jordan one time. He's like, so will the New Kids ever get back together again? And I remember what Jordan said. He said, I'll tell you this much, I don't know when that's going to ever happen, but I wouldn't vote against it. So Jordan was already on board even during the solo career. He's like, because at the time, I knew some of what went on, but the thing is, a lot of the world didn't know what was going on when it came to them. And the thing is just that, as Donnie always says, Donnie was like, listen, that part became inevitable because the demand wasn't there, that line. And it's funny because that album, Face the Music, that's the last album they did before they broke up, which was more R&B than mostly all this stuff. Except
Is that the one Teddy did?
Yeah, Teddy and Leon Silvers is on that. My mentor,
wow.
So Leon and Teddy and a couple other folks I can't think of at the moment, but The thing is that, and if you ask any blockhead or any New Kids on the Block fan, that's their favorite album. A lot of people, I mean, of course, because Hanging Tough, that's easy. That had all the big hits on it. Anytime an album has the big hits on it, we leave that conversation out. That's easy. You got big hits, but it's the challenge that's after the big hits. Can you still make an album that people will talk about 20 years from now, even if it doesn't sell as much as the first two did? And New Kids really accomplished that, because the last couple of shows that I went to last year, before they have a tour coming up now in a few weeks, I think. The last couple of shows I went to, they spent 20 minutes of their show doing album cuts, and the crowd went ballistic. And Donnie would look at me every now and then and say, Lord knows about this one. I'm like, come on, man. Because they know, because I've been waiting for y'all to do stuff like this in between the hits, and the fans love it, because we love the new stuff, but we love the obscure stuff too. So the interesting part about that is that when that album first came out, the diehard fans liked it, but at that time the industry was changing. And New Kids were no longer, even though they were trying to prove they're like, we're grown men now, we're not teens no more. So in a lot of ways, Face the Music was their heartbreak album, but they didn't have the heartbreak success that New Edition had. And unfortunately, the demand wasn't there. Jordan's brother John left the tour early, and it was like, you know what? Yeah, let's wrap this up. Let's still be friends while we're still friends, because if we're going to organ a lot of stuff, I'd rather us. And Donnie said, thank God that they never crossed the line with each other, because if that was the case, there probably would have never been a reunion. And in 2008, our dreams came true. And what did they do? They accomplished something that a lot of other groups are not able to accomplish. They made a cohesive comeback album that blended all of their other albums. The whole style, the trajectory of it, the vocal parts, who's going to do what. Danny's going to have his deep voice on that part of the song. They brought all those elements back to that one album, which is called the Block album. They had Timbaland. Even Teddy Riley did 2 songs on that album that never made that album. See what I mean?
Wow.
Oh, yeah. You didn't get the deluxe edition yet. The deluxe edition came out a few months ago. They included all the songs that Teddy and them did on the box set.
Wow.
They like and it's funny because I remember me and Donnie was going to his house. This is after they did the Block Con last year. We were riding on his way to his house out there in St. Charles, Illinois. And the thing is, he was telling me, I never knew that. I knew they had bonus tracks, but he didn't tell me that 2 of them were produced by Teddy. So I'm like, I said, you always got a surprise. He said, yeah. He said, there was a bunch. Timbaland did like 3 more songs for us, because Timbaland did 2 on that album. So the thing is, the comeback of New Kids on the Block is living proof. Again, it's never too late. And the fan base got even stronger, because here's the thing. The best part for me at their shows is seeing all of the other Blockhead fans sing the new stuff. See, it's easy when you got the hits. but for them to just see the fan, I mean, they had one of the songs off their album 10 was I Like the Remix. That was a hit off that record. And to watch all of especially the girls, to watch all of the fans sing every word verbatim, even all the ad-libs that Donnie do, like I love it, because I wish that we had that kind of support for our Black R&B artists.
Yeah.
I'm looking away. Because every time, I mean, when I told people that Jeffrey Osborne had an album out 2 years ago, they're like, oh, I missed that one. The fuck? I'm like, go Bryson. It's like, my thing is, I wish that radio and just the overall presence of the Black community would show that same kind of love whenever our classic artists got new material that comes out. So to see New Kids do that is unbelievable. I love it, because you gotta remember, back in those days when a lot of groups, even some white groups go through that. The white group put out a new record, and it's like, yeah, we like that, but we want to hear blah 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 blah. We want to hear blah 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 blah. The New Kids, Blockhead fans, we don't care. We just happy to see Jordan with that falsetto. We happy to see Donnie come out with this. You know what I mean? Like, we get excited just to see them performing new music and then mixing it with the classic stuff that we want to hear from them at the show. So to me, the New Kids on the Block probably had, in my opinion, my top 3, and I'm not being biased because those are my boys. I'm saying that because it's true. If I wasn't a diehard fan, I recognize greatness when I see it. So the thing is, they had the top 3 comebacks, and they're definitely in the top 3 for me. Like, in terms of one of the greatest comebacks and still going.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think that? Would you think a New Edition, New Kids on the Block tour? Because we saw them in American Music Awards when they did that stuff. Do you think that would have ever worked, or?
It's gonna happen. That's all I'm gonna say about that. No, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Just no. Listen, I mean, look. Anybody that knows the music business, the thing is, there's timing, and then you got to remember also, even though they are a group, both of them, a lot has changed. Because you got to remember, especially New Edition, because New Edition is again 5 to 6 acts rolled up into one. Everybody has different schedules. Everybody has different things they're doing when they're not touring together. You know, same thing with New Kids. You see, look, what does Donnie do? I've seen this. This is a personal story. It's a personal story. I've seen Donnie. And a lot of times I did these runs with him too. Like we'd be hanging out. Matter of fact, our last trip, we were both in L.A. New Kids on the Block. No, sorry. New Edition got their NAAC. I think it's NAACP award, the Image Award, and Donnie presented that to them. I was in town that weekend working with Leon Silvers and doing some things on my own. So we already had linked up. It was like, we're going to link up. We didn't link up until Tuesday, where we both went back home on the same plane going back to New York. So the thing is that we caught up and was able to talk about some stuff. So I'm telling you, I've seen Donnie literally go from doing a New Kid show and then jumping on the plane to go film Blue Bloods. That's, as he does like 15 seasons, I think. Yeah.
Wow,
you know what I'm saying? That. So, and then John Knight has his own show now with Farmhouse Fixers. Like he has a whole thing where he's doing his farm work. And he's a reality star now, which would have never happened 20 years ago. John is very shy. He's always been the shy one with anxieties and stuff like that. So now to see him doing his thing and things that he's passionate about besides music, it's opening up a lot of doors for him. Joey's doing Broadway. Joey's done Broadway. He's acting. Jordan's doing music, and he's doing investment with his restaurants and stuff like that. So it's going to happen when it's time to happen. But there are talks about it, and it's going to happen. I promise you. They're already spoken about it. That thing on American Music Award happened. Now, if it would have been 20, 30 years ago, that's hard to say, because you got to remember, this is the upheaval of information versus information, because a lot of people that didn't know the history of New Kids on the Block were very hesitant towards just them being in the same room. But of course, we know the history. When you know the history, it's different for people like me and you and a lot of other podcasters and people who've done the homework and lived in it the way that we have. So I can speak on it a little bit differently than most fans. But the thing is that, in that time period, we didn't have the internet back then. So a lot of people, let me just say this real quick. A lot of people had this notion that New Kids was just some manufactured white group from Boston that wants to infringe on New Edition's audience, which is totally not further from the truth, considering that Maurice Starr put them together. Number two, they already knew each other before that. The thing is just that was the whole template, was that they were the white New Edition, because they were already going around town doing their own thing under the name Nanook, which made no sense. And then of course, Larkin Arnold, the name, they hated that name, but Larkin Arnold, the genius, I always call him the genius. He's the one that told Maurice Starr, he's like, look, the guy's got something special, but you got to change that name, bro. It's not going to work. He said, well, they got a song called New Kids on the Block. Why don't you just call yourself New Kids on the Block? And it's so funny, because when Donnie wrote that rap, it wasn't intended for them to be New Kids on the Block. He just wrote that rap, and that was the place. He said, for those of y'all who was on the city shot, we're the New Kids on the Block. And it's like, it got a dope ring to it. Plus the whole new aspect, because obviously it's a play on New Edition. But just like Vanilla Ice, 4 years before New Kids got signed, New Kids audience was black, 90% black.
Wow.
They never had any attention for playing for a white pop audience, because New Kids on the Block was not a pop group. Listen to their first album. They had a song called I Want to Be Loved by You. Cancer. And my name is Jordan. No, he's like Cancer, but he's a Taurus. But the thing is that, where they got that from? The Floaters. Float on, float on. You know what I mean? I'm a Leo, and I'm Donnie Wahlberg. You know what I mean? Like that. They got that because Maurice, look who their producer is. Their whole thing was, we are a white R&B hip hop group. You see how we dance? We don't dance like normal white kids. We can dance. Donnie and Jordan and Danny are all certified break dancers on the streets. They're from the streets of Boston. They were in competitions with other black kids around the neighborhood. See what I'm saying? So it wasn't no, oh, we're trying to be this. This is the product of their environment. They're from Dorchester, Boston. That's right around the corner from Roxbury, where New Edition is from. That's the hood. That's not the suburbs. That's the hood. So the thing is, we wouldn't have had that talk because the misinformation that was already going around, that people think like, okay, who these white kids trying to be like New Edition? I'm like, no, you don't know the story. You don't know the story. And the thing is that now that people know the story, it makes sense. So we'd be like, oh, they could have been invited to the barbecue. I said they were already at the barbecues. They wasn't not being invited. What are you talking about? They were already at the barbecue. Y'all just didn't know it because all you saw was white faces doing R&B and hip hop and all this other stuff. And it wasn't, you know the story, it wasn't until the first album didn't do as well. Then they put out Hanging Tough. That wasn't doing well either. But at the Apollo, and I was there that night. I was in the fifth row.
Wow.
When they played the Apollo, Please Don't Go Girl, which is an R&B record, which was originally written for New Edition before they let Maurice start. In case you didn't know. Listen to the similarity. Is this the end? Please don't go, girl. It's the same thing. That's the genius of Maurice White. I'm sorry, Maurice Starr, my bad. But the thing is, that was already there. And it still wasn't getting the attention. Now, all the shows that they did, black audiences loved them, but it didn't result in record sales. And I hate to say it, but in that time period, no matter how dope you were, you needed to have a hit. At least one. You get one top 10, one top 20, we can do something. And Donnie said ultimately that strategy wasn't working because even though we had an all-black audience and that they loved us, it wasn't resonating on the charts. And it wasn't until a Florida radio pop station played Please Don't Go Girl. And the phones lit up and everything changed. And when the young white teenage girls finally saw who this group was, they went crazy. And think about it. The last white teenage group that had that kind of impact was the Osmonds, who I love, by the way. I love the Osmonds. The Osmonds. That was the last white teenage group that had girls going crazy. And then the demographic light goes on. Oh, so even though music has no color and you could be a fan of any artist you want to, no matter what your color or race is, we have to talk demographics. New Edition was, of course, for the black teenage audience. Menudo was for the young Spanish girl. Now the Spanish girls had young guys scream out. So now here comes New Kids on the Block. We finally got a white group that we can scream for. And that's when New Kids on the Block became an R&B, hip hop, and now pop group. So of course, now we have to make songs that cater to that side of the fence, but we still going to do our R&B hip hop thing. That's why if you notice, no matter what, when Jordan Knight comes in with that falsetto, it's over. You know what I mean? Think about what you're trying to do. We're just singing our song. That's R&B. I'm like, see, you're gonna make sure that R&B is in there. You know what I mean? Like that's what makes Kids on the Block dope. They brought all their sides together and respected their audience of all the universal appeal that they had as a white R&B hip hop pop group. So again, going back to my original statement, that would have been an interesting dichotomy, considering that when New Kids finally exploded, New Edition was on the verge of their super breakthrough from boys to men. Why is that? Because when Bobby Brown blew up with Don't Be Cruel, the last album that New Edition had was the what? That dreaded ass Under the Blue Moon album. No. Let me say this real quick. It wasn't that the Blue Moon album was garbage, but I'm gonna tell you what it is. The thing is that when you are a young, hip, you're the hottest 80s R&B teen, whatever you want to call it, and you just came off of 3 back-to-back classic albums, Candy Girl, All for Love, and the New Edition self-titled record with Mr. Telephone Man on it, and you put out a 1950s doo-wop album. Now, mind you, as you know, my legendary grandfather, Sam Bluzman Taylor, those are all his guys. Little Anthony and the Imperials, the Coasters, the Marcells, like all those groups. So I understood at a young age. I understood it. But the thing is, think about the average black teen. Now, the diehard New Edition fans didn't care. They're like, we just want to hear Ralph sing. We just want to hear Ralph. They don't care. But the majority of the aficionados, it's like, out of all the records that y'all could have been recording for a new album, and y'all come out with this. So thank God Earth Angel was a top 10 record, because that album would have really, really went to shit. So This is all during the period where Bobby Brown comes out with his shit. He's exploding. And then here comes New Kids, finally got a second album. And once that radio station played their record, Hanging Tough, it went platinum. Now New Kids finally had an audience, and they're doing the doing all this shit. And it's like New Edition is like, oh, we gotta come with some shit. And Sam's the reason why. Thank God that they were smart enough to hook up with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and create the masterpiece that we know now, as Any Heartbreak. Got the audience back. But think about that at the time. That would have been crazy. That's why I told you that tour. That if they would have toured back then like that, it definitely would have been a lot of crazy shit. Because the thing is that they're fighting for the audience, and then they're fighting for more to get proof. And it wouldn't have been the right time. I think that in the understanding of the internet and social media, as we had it for 20 years, and now that people don't care about social demographics, and the internet did that. Thank you very much for social media, because it broke down the walls and showed the artists who all their fans was. A lot of new. I know I was hanging out with Biv, and Biv was very shocked that I had a show. He said, "Yo, Lord, man, when your next show, man?" Said, I'm going to Hong Kong in a couple of weeks. He's like, "Oh, see, that's what I'm talking about, Lord. We ain't never been to Hong Kong before." When Biv told me that, you know how that made me? I'm like, wow, I've been somewhere my heroes haven't been. I'm like, wow. You know what I mean? But no, in a good way. That made me feel good, because it's almost like, think about that for 1 second. I get to play places that a lot of my heroes didn't get a chance to play. That doesn't mean that they're not known in those places. I'm just saying more so that the fact that I accomplished that, but then there's still some things that that a lot of those groups haven't accomplished either, in terms of just making their moves and stuff like that. So with social media, thank God that they're able to talk to all their fans around the world that they didn't even know that they had.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Europe, London, wherever.
Because I remember the first two albums, because I was in England when the first two albums came out, and Popcorn Love and everything, because here we had musical use, and so having young black kids singing Candy Girl and all that stuff, it was like, wow, these guys look like me and stuff. So it did blow up here. I moved to Nigeria in the mid 80s. And we forget about New Edition. We don't see them or hear about them. Then when that Any Heartbreak came out, Is It Isn't Love, the whole call, it was just like, what?
Yes.
Then when I saw Johnny Gill, I was like, I had that sense of, man, who is this guy standing in front? My kind of girl, and he's singing. I'm like, who's the new guy singing, and why is Ronnie, Bill, Mike, and I feel like, who's this new guy just taking over? Like, the Rouse the guy, and you should be at the back, but he was sitting in front of me, although he sounded great. And I remember hearing Can You Stand the Rain? I think, was it Can You Stand? I think it was Can You Stand the Rain to Boys to Men. I thought it was a male-female duet. I didn't realize Rouse's voice was just so, the way it blended in.
That range.
Yeah. But but I think there's a lot of people who did think that New Kids on the Block were the like, oh, we see what's happening with New Edition. Let's try and make a wide version of it, make more money, and disappear.
Oh yeah.
And so a lot of fans who don't know the backstory, like you've just described, see them as, oh, you just ripped off, like an Elvis Presley, you ripped off our music and tried to make money.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that last part you said. I'm glad you brought that up, because see, the thing is, as I told you in the last time we spoke, my granddad, along with Bobby Blue Bland, B.B. King, those were all Elvis's guys. See, a lot of people don't, because people just now finding out about the real story behind Elvis, which I knew for years because my grandfather used to be part of their publishing team. So when Public Enemy came out with Fight the Power, and mind you, I'm a diehard Public Enemy fan. So the thing is, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, is there truth behind this? And of course, I said, let me ask the man who would know. My grandfather was around Elvis. So I said, let me ask him. Because my grandfather's not going to lie to me. He's been around there. You've seen the history. You did your own research on my granddad. So he was there. Said, no. Elvis wasn't a racist. He said the people behind him who worked certain scenes, these guys had their own agenda. He said, but make no mistake that Elvis always acknowledged where he got everything from. He never called himself the king of rock and roll. Do you know what I'm saying? He didn't name himself that. That was the other people's term to name him, to stake claim on what they thought was a new coming. It was no new coming. Because he even said, if you want to ask who the king of rock and roll is, ask Fats Domino. He said that. That's what Elvis said. That's who I learned from. Jackie Wilson. Him and Jackie Wilson were like this. You know what I'm saying? So the thing is that because we didn't have the education, when I say we, I don't necessarily mean me or people that know the history. Like I said, I'm very fortunate that I have a legendary grandfather who's done some things where I learned the truth about how things work in the industry. See, I learned very early. That's why my knowledge, people like, you're such a historian. I didn't sit in my room and say, I'm going to be this great historian. No, when you know what I mean? When your grandfather and your uncles are part of the music industry, that's your school. My family was my Juilliard of music, not just with talking and learning history, but also because, as we know, I do damage on this motherfucker. You dig what I'm saying? So the thing is that for me, it's a representation of that. And the thing you got to understand is that you put it all together mentally, and then you have an understanding on why things work the way that they work and why things don't. So in the 80s, we didn't have that type of education up front unless you were in it or unless you knew what went on behind the scenes with certain things. And I was very fortunate that I had the best of both worlds. So when we drop knowledge like this about New Kids on the Block and New Edition, they love to hear it from someone like me or you, because the thing is that we've done our homework. You know what I mean? We know it. It's been validated. And I'm not saying that because these are my mentors and my big brothers, because people are like, oh, you being biased? I said, no, I'm not. I said, because truth be told, if it was the case on the opposite end, you think I wouldn't be speaking out? So y'all know me in my mouth. I don't care. Like, I really, because I have nothing to lose and I have nothing to gain. I can speak about whatever I want. So the thing is, I'm my own career. When you have your own career, you become more of a fearless rebel. So if I'm standing up for something or trying to teach you something that you may not know, your good idea would be for you to listen. Now, you can form your own opinion after you hear the facts I drop. Then you can form your own opinion on what you want to form. But the thing is that it's good that we have these platforms now where you get to hear these stories, because a lot of people didn't. The same thing with Vanilla Ice. Like I told people couldn't believe when I told him, he's like, hold up, Chuck D from Public Enemy was going to sign Vanilla. I said, yeah. And I got Chuck D on video saying it. I have him on video. He said, yeah. He said, it's very true. He said, we want to sign Vanilla Ice. He used to open up for us back in Dallas. And Vanilla beneficial. He said, a lot of people don't know. But because of how his career transpired in terms of the midst of the success, nobody would believe it. He's like, come on, militant ass, don't believe the hype, Chuck D, Public Enemy, signing Vanilla Ice. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe, but it's the facts. Because like New Kids on the Block, Vanilla Ice had an all-black audience before he got signed. And Vanilla Ice said it for years. He said, I had no intention of no plans for playing for an all-white audience, even though it's obvious that I'm white. But I live and breathe hip-hop. I love funk music. My favorite band is Parliament Funkadelic. My favorite MC is Rakim. This is what he's always said. And look at some of the older interviews before he blew up. He always said that. But people were like, oh, he's a fraud. I said, no, he's not. Because first of all, look at how he danced. That's not a fraud. Remember, he was a dancer first. You can't. You see how the way Vanilla, like you can't. You had to be in to dance the way he danced, like us. You had to be in the circle. There's no way you could sit at home and watch a video and be like, okay, I guess I can go like this, and maybe no. Vanilla, that's how he got his name. Vanilla Ice got his name Vanilla because he was the only white guy in Dallas that could break dance. People wouldn't notice because we don't have the collective data. You know what I'm saying? At that time, now we do, but back then we didn't have that. So all we could say is, he's trying to be like MC Hammer. Now the record label did try to make him like MC Hammer because you saw the clothes he had on.
Yeah, it's about making money.
The first album he had the feline suit on with the gold. Then of course the white record label owner says, "Listen, Vanilla, we're gonna make you a pop star." And Vanilla was like, "I don't want to be a pop star." He said, "Well, we're so sure it's gonna work. We're gonna give you $3.5 million." And Vanilla always says, "I don't care what nobody says. Anybody in my shoes at 18 years old, and you're getting offered $3.5 million, I'll be whatever you want me to be." and that's what happened. And that's why Vanilla Ice had the success. And then, of course, he lost it. But look, the last 20 years, he got it back and got more respect now than he did when he was in the heyday of his shit. He got more respect now. When they invited him to Soul Train and he went down the Soul Train line, he said, it was emotional for him. He said, because they spent so many years hating on me, and now all of a sudden they acknowledging my presence and knowing that even though I'm not the breadwinner in hip hop, but I've always shown love to the Black community and was never trying to be something that I wasn't. I really am part of this community. And they let him that was emotional for him because he felt like I finally got the respect that I should have gotten back then. And even New Kids went through that for a while too, but they broke up before they could ever really get that. But they haven't. The last 20 years, they've gotten it even more now than they did when they first came out, for sure.
Yeah, and the
So
same thing with John Beacon. I just interviewed him last week, and he says the same thing that there were people within the industry, other artists, that were like, "What was this guy doing coming into our territory?"
yeah,
But they didn't realize that. Look, he wasn't a plant. He wasn't a pop guy who just wants to try and take the R&B market. That's his bread and butter. That's who he is. And so those who get to see him and talk to him and hear him play, they're like, okay, he's like a Tina Maria, that they love this stuff, that they're so good that we just can't just, I mean, I'm surprised how many black female R&B artists say that Tina Marie is their hero. I'm like, what? You know,
well, as you know, me and Tina Marie were very close. As you know, I was going to work on her album before she passed away. She had chose
wow.
me directly. We had been friends building for. As you know, her legendary cousin, my longtime friend Jill Jones of the Prince Camp. Those are that's her cousin. So the thing is that anytime Tina's name come up, I get emotional. I spoke to her 3 days before she passed away, and you know, I've been hearing that years before people started really saying that. She was already accepted in that, as we all know. And this is why I always question people about when they attack certain artists. I feel like people will attack whoever they wanted to attack, because how are we going to say that about New Kids on the Block, but we don't say that about Bobby Caldwell? Because nobody knew that Bobby Caldwell, unless you was in the industry, nobody knew Bobby Caldwell was white. But all we heard was, I guess you wonder where I've been. Because when I was a kid, I'm thinking he's a black guy. And then when I saw the video, I'm like, oh, as a kid, he's white. And the thing is that if you know the history of Bobby Caldwell, you understand that. If you know the history of Tina Marie, you'll understand that. Tina Marie is a classically trained white girl from Santa Monica, California, but the majority of her friends and who she was around was black. And it's the same thing with a lot of other artists from the 60s and the 50s who we didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody knows that rock and roll starts with Chuck Berry and Little Richard. Everybody knows that. But the thing is that the Beatles and the Stones have always acknowledged that. But even before Chuck Berry and Little Richard, you have Rosetta Tharpe. You know what I mean? You have people, Big Mama Thornton. You have people that acknowledge me. Janis Joplin, as we know. See, look, remember her? Janis Joplin. Janis Joplin was singing Tell Mama by Etta James in the midst of her own. Janis Joplin's on top of the world. And she's singing Tell Mama in her set by Etta James. So she's introducing all her fans to where she got her shit from. So education is about each one teach one. So if you're not educating, if you're a white artist that does R&B, funk, or hip hop, and you're not educating your white audience on where it comes from, to me, that's when you are a vulture. If you didn't do the knowledge and you're not expressing that, and let me go back just real quick, not to go off topic, but this is why I am proud and honored to call Donnie Wahlberg not only my hero and my favorite member of New Kids besides Jordan, but also my very close friend and my big brother. You know why? Because Donnie has always stood on the front line for black artistry. And every show that he's done, I'm gonna give you a little story real quick. About 2 or 3 years ago, New Kids had a show at Fenway in Boston. That's hometown, it's hometown. Big audience. Belle Biv DeVoe was part of that show. Belle Biv DeVoe came out in between their sets. So, of course, the last song they end with, as usual, Poison. Everybody goes crazy. So, Ricky Bell ends on that note. They end it. And it's like, give it up. Donnie comes out, give it up for Belle Biv DeVoe. Hold on. Before we move on to the show, I want you to stay right here, fellas. I want you to stay up right here. I said, what is Donnie about to do? I want you to stay right here. Donnie grabbed the mic. And when Donnie talks, everybody gets quiet. He's like, y'all see these 3 men up here? He said, this is 3/6 of the guys. If it wasn't for New Edition, there would be no New Kids on the Block, no Backstreet Boys, no Old Town, no none of that. And everybody went crazy. Said, understand and believe. I'm telling every fan in here, every blockhead, because I've often had to correct journalists when they ask who's the creators of the modern day boy band. Not us, not New Kids. And I've seen Donnie do it. Donnie will correct journalists. No, we are not the creators of the modern day boy band. New Edition is. Period. That's where we get our style from. Part of our name is even entwined in that. So when he did that, he said, I'm giving y'all all permission. Check fans, check journalists. People need to know the truth. And we've been speaking the truth from the very beginning since our career. If you look at every interview we ever did, we always made sure New Edition got top billing and they shout out because that's where we come from. So for me personally, if you're not doing what Donnie Wahlberg has been doing for 30 something years, even when the group have broken up long after that, you are a vulture. You're not doing your part. So that's the only time I'm going to ever have a problem with a white artist that doesn't acknowledge where it comes from or where they get their style from. That's where I have the problem at. Other than that, keep doing what you're doing. If you sound good, I'm a fan. I love what you're doing. That's why I love Adele. A lot of people don't like Adele. I love Adele. And of course, I'm biased even in that because as you know, I spent my last couple of years in that fraction working for my little sis, which is the late great Amy Winehouse. So you
Yeah.
know, in our conversations that me and Amy would have, we talked about this because what I want the world to know about Amy more than anything else, Amy knew her music. She knew the roots. She knew the history. She knew that she did the knowledge. That's why I will forever speak her name. Not just because of what she did for me in my career and because how she held me down and made me an opening act. It's because I felt proud. I feel proud to be part of her legacy, which showed the world that here's a young girl at 23, 24 years old. She's a white girl from London, but guess what? She knows her music. She knows her history. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a Rob Stevens, who is he's the vocal coach for both Justin and Rihanna
Yes.
and a number of people. Yeah, he was part
Uh-huh.
of 9/11, and he had his own song. He had his own. Interviewed him a way back. He mentioned that he was called to do some work with Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and he actually saw Justin back in when before they blew up, and
I
Justin was
believe
always
it.
talking about R&B. So it wasn't as if he's like, okay, I'm blown up now, let me just do R&B. That he was when he was really young, 14, he'd been really into R&B. And so I think sometimes it's important to be able to tell these stories because it looks as if, oh, he's just trying to be cool now, so he's working with Neptunes and Timberland and stuff like that.
They don't
So
know the history. They don't
yeah,
know
no,
they don't
know
know the
the
knowledge.
history. There's another thing I wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
I noticed I saw a post from you when, and I haven't really said much about this, but 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 it touched me just seeing um, the video of Cassie, and
Uh,
it made me go back to look at my interviews that I've had with female artists. So from Nikki Howard, um, from
Auntie.
from yeah, from Nikki Howard and other female artists that I've interviewed, even Nikki Gilbert from Brownstone. I spoke to a lot of them over the time just to see what was the difference between being a female artist compared to a male artist. And Shanice talked about she was 5 months pregnant. The label found out and dropped her. It's like, yeah, well, you're pregnant. We don't need you anymore. Nikki Howard talks
Mm-hmm.
about going on tour and be having to always be on your guard because you don't know about your road manager, your security, and how safe you are. And then we go back and see the video, and I saw that you were very vocal about that, and I wanted to get your why you took it personal and just your thoughts just in general.
Well, for the obvious reasons, I took it personal because, as most of my fans know, I am a proud father of three amazing daughters. And I have a beautiful granddaughter who's following in my footsteps with performing. And of course, my mother, who just got her doctorate, the great Dr. Sandra Taylor. The women in my family and how we grew up, that alone, forget the music industry part of it. Just as a black man that is a protector of all women, especially our black women, very important for me. And the way that we were raised in our household, we never saw any of that. I've heard stories and venomous things because the type of thing that we frowned upon was any type of abuse, mentally, emotionally, and of course, physically. I lost one of my aunts to domestic violence. And I've always said that she was scared to let me and my brothers and them know, because God forbid what we would have done or anything of that caliber, to know that any female in my family is being hurt or abused or in any fashion, shape, or form. So that's the personal aspect of it. It makes my skin crawl on a personal level. On the music industry level, in terms of what knowing, because of the stories that I've heard and things that I've seen. Now, mind you, I can promise you this, my right hand to God, I've never seen any women get mishandled in front of me. I promise you, if I was in front of you know who, that would have never happened. I would have threw blows. There's no way in the world I would stand back. There's no amount of money. There's no amount of clarity, clout, whatever you want to call it, popularity. Because we're like, well, I can't do that. I might mess up my money. When we hear stories about men who abuse women in the industry, and we're like, why didn't you speak up? Because a lot of times, of course, they don't want to mess up their thing. They don't want to get blackballed or have the connections. Where me, I was already rebellious, like, because me and my older brother, Casino Chip, like, we don't play that. Like, in our family, we just don't, and the women around us, we don't play any of that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to let any woman get hurt in any way being around me. So the thing is, on the industry level, when you hear people like Nikki Gilbert or anybody else that went through that type of abuse in the industry, it taught me at a very early age on why I was who I was, in terms of how I feel about women and women in this industry. And because I have daughters that got in the business, of course, I schooled them very early. They knew. I taught them how to defend themselves. Because as you know, if I wasn't doing music, boxing would be my main profession. I fight. So the thing is, for me, I taught my daughter as well. I said, you don't ever let no man put his hands on you or talk down to you in any way, in that regards. So I taught them very early, because they didn't see that with me and their mom growing up, you know what I mean? Because they seen my mother getting treated with love and respect. No matter how many disagreements me and my ex-wife got into, and it wasn't a whole lot either. They never see me yell or curse at their mother or talk down to them. You know what I mean? Like, we just don't do that. That's just not in our nature. If I ever gotten upset to that point, that's what gym and video games are for. If I'm not calm, I calm down at that moment, get myself together, grab my wife's hand at the time, and be like, come on, babe, let's sit down and talk. We went through it. That's the kind of man I am. That's the way I was raised. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys who you see now ain't got no home training, or they forgot what kind of man. Because I'm pretty sure if they saw their moms getting abused in that way, they wouldn't feel that way either. But a lot of that has to do with trauma and a lot of mental issues that we don't even know about until the story comes forth. And to me personally, if you haven't been getting the help, or you didn't go through something like that and you're still doing what you're doing, that's deeper than just getting help. That means you have an issue that you have not confronted. And until you get rid of these yes people around you and all the success in the world, because we've seen it crumbling down. And a lot of times being in that part of it. And I'm able to speak on this too, because, I'm going to say this before, because I know the next question is going to be the segue into that. So I'll just give you the prequel on that. You know, I was around when Bad Boy first started, because Hard Pierre, who was the former vice president of Bad Boy, he was an intern at Henchman Entertainment. I was signed to Jimmy Henchman, as most of my fans know, back in '94. So I saw the uprising of Bad Boy in the midst of all of it, in terms of things that would happen, or things that were sure, a lot of groups that would come through that would end up getting signed later, like Faith Evans. I heard Faith before the world heard Faith Evans. You know what I mean? So certain things that you hear in regards towards women and why they were treated this way and different things like that. And like I told you, because of my psyche and who I am, and the way my mental capacity rolls, certain event parties I didn't go to. So a lot of events I did go to, and then some of them I'm like, you know what, looking back, I'm glad I didn't go. Because if I would have saw what I really saw, even though I heard and I knew how true it was, because you got to remember, I was in front of the scenes, I'm also in back of the scenes. So when you would hear these stories about tempers flaring and bottles being thrown and all that type of stuff, yeah, that's 99.9% of that stuff is true. Absolutely. And you don't have to, mind you, that I didn't have to see a Cassie video to know. If you look back at some of the interviews and old clips on YouTube where you see Cassie clearly wasn't happy, you can see it. Sometimes when the words don't speak, the energy does. Just look at the clips. You can tell she wasn't happy. And the thing was so sad is when she came out and finally had the courage to say it, there were people that didn't fucking believe her. I'm like, are you serious? After all this time, you think she got something to gain after where her career could have easily went? How dare I felt violated. It didn't even happen to me. I felt bad for her. And look what happens. It took a videotape to show people that this really happened, that this was going on. I'm like, Y'all never heard the stories. Y'all didn't hear when he hit Steve Stout on the head with a fucking bottle for the "Hate Me Now" video by Nas. That stuff is true. I was there. I wasn't on the video shoot, but I was there. I was hanging around the labels at that time. This stuff is true, but of course, back then we didn't have internet. Again, like I said, we didn't have internet, no social media, and most things that we hear, we get what? Tucked underneath the rug. And you know how it is when you sweep what you're seeing right now, besides what Cat Williams said, because no disrespect to Cat Williams, but I've been speaking the industry truth since MySpace. Everybody knows that. Anybody can go back to all of my platforms, and you can go back and look at all my log and see when did I not tell the truth about the music industry. So 2024 is not the year of the truth. It's just the year of more truth being exposed. And like dirt, when you sweep too much dirt under the rug, what happens? The smoke rises to the point where you start choking on it. You can't take no more. You got to get some water or some air. So the water and air represents what we're seeing right now. People are speaking the truth. One of my very best friends, Indira Khan, who is the daughter of my number one female favorite singer and who I worked for a couple of times, Shaka Khan. Now, mind you, Indira just told me that story 6 months ago. I already knew, but she said, "No, I'm gonna wait for the opportune time to tell it." How he disrespected Shaka. So now you heard it from her mouth. You heard it directly from her. So the thing is just that these are things that were taboo to the outside, but to us who was already behind the scenes and hearing all this, like I told you, I'm so glad that I never saw any of this stuff up front, because knowing who I am and how my mother raised me, there's no way in hell that anybody in my squad that's a man is going to put his hands on any woman. Period. My brother, my former brother-in-law, tried that with my sister-in-law, and all hell almost broke loose in my house. That's a personal story. In my house, he started yelling. I'm like, they can argue as long as he ain't trying to. He stood up like he was going to do something. I said, "Oh no, you're not. You might want to tone that down. Go for a walk. If you put a hand on my sister-in-law, we knocking you the fuck out. Simple as that. Period. I don't care what you do." And he gathered himself for me in that moment, because he knew. He knew I wasn't having it. I was not having it. So that shows you who I am. No guy, any of the members of my team, because I got a lot of guys, my brothers, my cousins, and we don't play that in any circumference. I don't care what type of argument conspired. You do not put your hands on women. Now everybody's like, "Well, women shouldn't put their hands on guys." I'm like, yeah, that too. But guess what? We're not talking about women that hit guys. We're talking about men that hit women. When I'm ready to talk about women, and women shouldn't do it either. But here's the thing: we're talking about men, and most of that abuse comes from men. Hurt men, hurt people, hurt men, hurt women. Yeah. So I don't. You can say what you want to. Don't at me. Don't tag me. I don't give a shit. It's no way in hell. If you can't handle it no better than that, then y'all shouldn't be together. You should just walk away in the relationship or leave, or if you can't control that. But putting your hands physically on any woman is a no-go for me. So I hope that kind of summed up what you were asking. So it hit me hard, man.
Yeah, I'm one of my biggest things. So as a therapist, I'm one of those people that will look at this and say, what will grab the headline is the people involved. But what they really should say is, then why would somebody get beaten up and dragged and still show up and not leave? Because they'll say, "Oh, we should just leave." But if it was that easy, anyone will pack up. So women who are in abusive relationships, I think my hope was that the focus would be on helping women generally who are in that environment and understand why they don't leave and what happens when you hear this stuff. How do you support them? But what they did, of course, is like, okay, they just made it about Diddy and Cassie, and that became the center of it. But then it's like, okay, now that's gone. The women who are in those environments, those relationships, and they're not leaving, what do you do to support them and help them to understand it's hard, but because some of them aren't leaving because, hey, this is my paycheck. Where am I going to live? They're being brainwashed to say, if you leave, your career's gone. Then what am I got? So they're psychologically and emotionally abused. So that's where I get upset, is that the headlines are always, okay, yeah, Diddy did this to Cassie 8 years ago, and let's just be outraged by that, and then we move on. Yeah. So
think about and then think about the women who haven't told all their stories yet.
Yeah,
Think
yeah,
about not just industry. I'm talking about dreaming in general, but definitely industry, since we our primary focus in us being in the entertainment field.
yeah.
Um, there's a lot of that. I mean, case in point, going back to Shaka. I don't know if you know some of the stories behind her being in Rufus. Andre, Rufus is Andre Fisher's group. Andre Fisher is the drummer in Rufus, and the thing is, he was notorious for trying to hit on Shaka. But Shaka, being the South Side, Chi-Town chick that she is, read a book. Have you read her book? Read the autobiography. She would jump on Andre with beer bottle, broken beer. Like, Shaka's not the one. I know. Trust me. I work with her. Shaka's not the one. Very much like Brooklyn. That's South Side, Chi-Town. Cabrini Green. That ain't nothing changed. Shaka will curse you out and grab something and get at you if you ever think about doing that. So she know what that feels like. She's seen it in that aspect. You know what I mean? In terms of that. So it's a triggering thing for her, for any man trying to talk to her like he's gonna do something. I'm just like, nigga, who the like that you can see it. Mickey Howard too. Mickey the same thing. It's because that's triggering for a lot of the women from the 60s and 70s and 80s that had to deal with that. You know what I mean? So think about more of the aspect of most of the women who haven't come forth. And before this year is over, trust me, it's going to be a whole lot more women coming out speaking on this.
Yeah, I hope so, and I hope they don't just It's easy to say, okay, when a tree is falling, everyone brings out the axe to quick it down. But I think if they should, there should be a lot more men or even women within the industry that took advantage, and their stories haven't yet been told, so that it makes it. Because if I had to if one of my kids they wanted to get into the industry, I would be so afraid to even to consider that, because of the whole casting couch, the whole,
Casting couch, yeah.
yeah, the whole being in a recession and all that stuff. All these men with underage kids, and all, it's so it. My hope is that they don't do what they normally do, show have the
Keep
spotlight
talking.
just on,
Keep talking. I'm here.
yeah, just have the spotlight on just one person, but just in general the industry, how they cover this stuff up, how they protect their own, and how to make it safe for people that work there, but also have a sort of a whistleblower type of system that means that you can expose people who are making it unsafe for our young kids who need to come into the industry and stuff like that. So that's my hope. As I said, it's really not, it's not me trying to pour firewood on the Diddy fire, but it's more so just seeing that, look, out of this, how can you make it safe for others who are coming out?
Well, I was going to say, it's really, the thing is, it's really about the whole mixture of being fearless. And I remember the last thing when we talked before, um, most of that was centered around how was I able to, as a man, how was I able to come up in the industry where there's so many roadblocks of, well, we can ruin your career, or if you don't do this, or if you don't do that, if you speak on this, then you shouldn't talk about publishing and royalties. Like I told you, I didn't get, the reason why the labels didn't sign me, even though I had offers from Sony and a few other people, but the contracts weren't right. But even for the rejection, is because God told me, I'm thinking all this time that it was my talent. I'm like, well, I mean, in my mind, why wouldn't you want to sign a guy that plays 7 instruments, does all his background vocals, sing, rap, dances, produces, songwrite? You would think that that's a money cow for us, because I'm thinking in terms of how to label things. I'm like, I can make y'all guys some money and we can all make money together. And that's when it hit me. I realized it didn't have anything to do with my talent or who I knew or who I was co-signed by. It was because they were scared of the fact that I was a rebellious whistleblower. I didn't care about prestige. Don't get me wrong. I mean, of course, when you learn about what being famous really is, then you have a whole nother view to it when you see that the cost of it. Because a lot of people, freedom got cost because they either were afraid to speak out or they weren't afraid, and then they had things taken from them. And the thing was, I got taught at a very early, like I told you before, I learned very early from my grandfather and my mother, is You don't fear no one but God. You don't even fear him because God is your partner. He's your friend. You know, God's going to make sure that you get over every obstacle as long as you do right. Now, that doesn't mean that none of us are perfect, but I can honestly say because of my heart and who I was and because how I care about people, if I would have got signed to any record label, and by the way, we almost did get signed to Bad Boy because we were henchmen. So I'm telling you, I knew that God put me on my pathway for a reason. And as you look at now, thank God we didn't get signed to Bad Boy. You know what I'm saying? So different things that I look back now and I'm like, and just to think, we would have really thought that we was the shit if we would have got part of that whole mixture of everything. And now you see what's happening now. Now there's even a ban for the people who had nothing to do with what Diddy was doing. They're paying for his mistakes because of what he did. So the thing is for me is it took me a year to figure that part. That's like around probably 98, 99, right before I joined Palm and Funkadelic and then later worked with Amy, is that God told me the path that I've chosen for you is different from the average artist. You're not going to have just a record deal and then blow up. It's going to be a little bit more different and better than that. You're a boss. You're going to walk into the rooms with people. All your heroes are going to acknowledge how dope you are the way you acknowledge how dope they are and what you mean to you. And as you've seen that with my career, that's pretty much been that. You know what I mean? To not have a platinum album on my wall yet and still have platinum respect, which is more important because the plaques will come. And I'm already a Grammy voting member, so think about that. That's going to already come. I've been nominated before. So the thing is, why can't that come on my own terms? Because I was willing to stand the fuck up for what I believed in and what I stood on. Principle, morals, code, ethic, and especially when it comes to our women. Because I'm the guy that would stand up. I'm all masculine male, and I would be able to stand up and say, I'm pro-woman. You can have an opinion, you can say what you want to, but don't talk down to any woman. And that's my opinion. Like I said, it's one thing if y'all cool and y'all playing with each other and y'all have a relationship, that's cool. But I don't agree with that. I wasn't part of that whole misogynistic viewpoint about women can do this. If you notice, most of my work with female artists, they'll tell you because most female artists felt safe and comfortable with me. You know, you want to know why? Because I wasn't trying to sleep. I wasn't trying to put hands on them. I wasn't trying to get my way around because I knew who I knew in the industry. Well, I know so and so, and if you do this for me, I might hook you up with that. A lot of producers still do that to this day. You know that, right? A lot of guys still do that. Still, I was never that guy because if it wasn't natural chemistry between me and that artist, that's a female, that wasn't happening. I'm not going to ever force myself in a position with any woman, whether it's personal or professional. That's the reason why when you see the people who I hang around, they'll tell you. I don't have to. I'm saying it now because we're doing the interview, but I'm saying like I don't have to say it because my reputation speaks that, and that's a difference when you stand on principle. And that's how I knew the labels didn't want to sign me because I was too vocal. I'm the one that I'm signed to a label, and I got let's say you were an artist. Let's say that you were an artist and you were coming up, and we're signed to the same label, and you didn't know about publishing. I would be the one to tell you about publishing. And once you start having questions to your manager or your record label, they're going to be looking at you like, where do you get all this knowledge from? And then it starts like, we got a leak. And then all of a sudden we got a leak. So think about that. It goes back to me. Oh, we got to get rid of him. We got to get rid of this guy. He's going to mess it up for all of us because it's an agenda when it comes to record labels. And the thing is that they do these things about telling women, well, you're pregnant, so guess what? We have to drop you from the label. Or you spoke about this, so you have to do that. Matter of fact, when you get a chance, this is a plug, but I'm gonna be honest with you. When you get a chance, and I know you saw my interview with my girl Tara Kemp, right? Remember Tara? Just want to hold you tight. Back in the 90s, early 90s, she was the next Tina Marie. Just want to hold you tight all day, all night. When you get a chance, get her on your show because she had a similar story about how they treated her after only one album. Because people just thought, well, where did she go after that first album? What happened? And I'm gonna let her tell her story, but I'm saying it's very similar to what not the abuse part about that, but it's more so how the record labels treated her when she stood on something that she believed in, and next thing you know, nobody wanted to work with her, and then she had to do what she had to do. And the thing is that she and so many other women have gone through this in the industry because they didn't have people like me or other people who are willing to stand for them and say, no, this is not right. You know what? You don't need that top producer. Work with me. That's why I said, no. You got one right here. Let's work together. We'll talk about fees and money and all that stuff later. Let's start working together. And you have power now. I tell female artists all the time, you have power. You have independence. You may not have the big budget like so and so, but that's okay. Cater to your fan base and build, so that way you don't have to let your thing be just solely dependent on a man or somebody who's controlling the reins of what they can do, because they feel like, well, I got the connections, I got this and the third, and if you don't link up with me, you ain't gonna make it. Because like you said earlier, that's the brainwash tactic. They'll make a lot of females believe that they can't make it in this industry unless they have that. Whereas a guy like me, I'm showing them and I'm telling them, and to see the people who I roll around. And you, like I said, it's not about. I'll go tell people I can name drop, because name dropping is actually cool when you have names to drop. I'm just gonna say, like, look, they're like, he's name dropping. I say, listen, I can drop a name because I have names to drop, and because my status and who I am validates that. So people who only got a problem with me dropping names is people who can't drop names. Just being honest. So when I speak on this stuff, it's not to brag. I'm just making a point, because if I don't say it, people will think, well, who's this guy talking? That's how people think. Who's this guy? Because now guys, because remember, all this time, Roger Bonds, I know you know that name, Roger Bonds, and a lot of other people who've been speaking about Diddy for so long. Oh, he just want money. He just want money. He just doing this for money. Now all of a sudden, see that video, it's like, well, why? How come so and so ain't talking? I said, y'all don't understand this word. So going back to what you said earlier, it's not as easy as people think, because when you're dealing with prestige and ownership, and even on a mental level, because if you've been brainwashed, or especially if you're a female, if you've been brainwashed already, that's not a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah.
It's not just some, I'm leaving him. It's more like, what, like you said, what am I going to do? Where am I going to live? You know, I try to go to one of the opportunities that he's connected with. He might tell them, don't mess with Cassie, or don't mess with so-and-so, or I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to take this from you. And then you're dealing with that too. And most men, I'm going to say it, most men who you think are courageous are not courageous. Some men feel like they have something. For me, once God told me where I stood in terms of how I stood up for myself, for women in my family, for women around me, and of course, before I even had daughters, just for the mother of my children, and even my ex-wife, who I'm still best friends with to this day. Me and my ex-wife are best friends every day. So what does that tell you about a man like me? You know, we are nothing without women, especially our Black women when it comes to our race. Like, we are nothing without, and Black women should be protected at all fucking times on every level. So it's an interesting dichotomy balance. It's a very game of give and take, and it's very hard to talk about sometimes without people getting into their feelings or trying to make excuses for abusers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's where I would always get back to is that anyone that's caught up in this, men or women, because you could be a man and be pressured by other people to do certain things.
Yeah.
We from on the outside would say, why don't you just leave? And if it was that easy, most people would have left or would leave. And so we just need to be sensitive. And when we do, if we do have that inkling that if somebody has a bruise, or they they're shaving the side of their hair looking all crazy, you're like, pay attention and
Pay attention to the
intervene.
signs. Thank you.
Just pay attention to people, and don't think it's that easy just to say, look, I'm struggling. Just pay attention and ask somebody, how you doing? And just don't.
And
And if they
most
say, yeah,
important,
I'm okay,
listen.
but just say no. Ask them, no, but how are you doing? And they may say, and they, as I said, so it isn't. My whole thing is, I'm not going to be one of those shows that, oh yeah, let's nail on Diddy. What else do you know about it? No, it's not about that. It's really going to be about knowing, being paying attention to people that you know, because you never know what somebody's going through, and you just need to be there and being patient to support them.
In
So
the name of in the name of humanity and compassion, you have to. I mean, that's just general, not even just with the subject of domestic violence or anything of that nature, but just in general for the sake of humanity
yeah,
and for mental health. It's
yeah,
very important that you ask that. Like, even with my band members, like all of the corporate gigs and stuff that we do, and then when I'm working with certain people, the first thing I ask, even during the show, because we be turning up. You see how we do on stage. We be turning up, having
yeah,
fun. Y'all don't see backstage, and I'll be like, so what's up with you? What's going on with your stuff? You good? You okay? And then we talk. Me and my friends, we talk. And the thing is, you know, I've been there. So a lot of times I relate to what they're doing because they always be like, well, Lord, you're so together and you know. I said, listen, I am, but do understand this. I'm not above it. I've been there. I've had moments where depression did set in, where I felt things weren't going the way they should. And thank God for, for just being who he is, because, God is my therapist, but there's nothing wrong with a real therapist either. And the thing is, you have to lock into that. If you don't lock into that, you'll be feeling that, because we don't know, like you said earlier, we don't know what someone is going through or dealing with. And
Yeah.
before we can easily say this, that, and the third, because here's my thing also with the you should leave. Now, the reason why I could become adamant about a woman leaving her boyfriend or husband or whoever, if she's suffering from abuse, is because that next time around, that may be your last time breathing.
Yeah.
And the thing is that if it ever gets to a point where that, it's not about it being easy to leave. I always say physically, make the move first and then begin the process of detaching, income and all that kind of stuff, and then start to do the process. I said, but if it's a severe, and I don't keep it, matter of fact, let me take that back. Even if it's the smallest increment, because, a lesson not learned will be repeated. And the first reaction is usually what you see. What this old saying, when somebody shows you who they really are,
Yeah.
believe it. Because the thing is
Yeah.
that, God forbid, you could have spilled soda on the counter of your kitchen, and he caught a angry tempered fit and decided to put his hands on you. That could be the last time. That could be your last time breathing. So that's the reason
Yeah.
why I'm adamant when it comes to you should leave right away, because you don't want that to be your life, and there's no love in that. And I don't want to see any of my people, especially my female friends, be in a position where, you know what I mean? Because then,
Right.
God forbid, if they die or something happens, how do you think I'm going to feel? I'm like, and I
Yeah.
didn't say something. I didn't get a chance to really say what I should have said. I was trying to mind my. I think I'll never mind my business. If I see something different, I feel like vibe and energy is off or weird, I'm going to ask.
You
Feeling
know.
something weird. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, correct me. But if not, I'm feeling something
Yeah.
very weird from you. Are you okay? Is everything going on with you at home? Is it good? So it has to happen. It has to happen.
Yeah. And I think what just as we just finally on this, I think just the as fans, it's really hard when we see our musical heroes involved in this, and we tend to want to believe the good in them. A case in point,
Yeah,
there's a lot of us who are massive fans of R. Kelly, the music, the legacy
of course.
he came out with.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
I'm sure that what he is in prison for, that probably 70% of the men in the music industry had done, had been involved
Oh yeah.
with something like that.
Oh yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
probably the fact that but is he was abused, and anyone
Yes, he was.
in therapy or anyone would tell you that abusers become abusers. If
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
almost like you don't even realize. And so I remember speaking with Woody Rock, who formerly of Drew Hill, and we were talking, and I
Yes.
said, you know what, I I can imagine that he needed help. The label knew he needed help. People around him knew he needed help, but he was making so much money for us. We turn a blind eye. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no one spoke up, and he needed help. And instead of getting the help, he was being enabled. Yeah, be in the studio. You need some young girls. Yeah, sure. Here, come this way, because we know we want you to be as productive and as making as much money for us and for all of us. So no one's going
Hmm.
to stand up and talk. And so that's because then that's the chain and that cycle. So there's empathy for me for him, because he has opened up about what happened, but no one supported and no one
Hmm.
helped him. And that's always going to be the thing that I just hope that people be aware that there are others who have done the same thing. I mean, this is not a gossip show for me to start picking names and
No, no,
suspecting and stuff
not at
like
all.
that.
Yeah.
It's just to say that this stuff is happening, and we just always need to be aware. If we know anyone that's in the industry, just be aware, just watch out for them. It's not worth your soul, going down that route and stuff like that.
Yeah, and thanks for saying that too, because you know, I often have to correct people sometimes. Now, of course, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, as you know. And the thing is, um, I absolutely hate when people misconstrue the scripture. Because the money's the root of all evil. I'm no, 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 no. Money's not the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. Not money, because we need money to pay our bills and do what we need to do. But it should never ever be for the sake of protecting enablers and people who are doing obvious wrong. That's why they say for the love of money, because at some point, like you said, if you know someone that's doing these things and you know blatantly and you didn't do nothing about it, I mean, of course we're looking at you sideways. You had a chance to stand up and do something. You had a chance to protect that person. You had a chance to do that, but you're more concerned about your salary. You're more concerned about, well, what if this happens? And mind you, on the mental aspect on the other side of your brain, that's something to think about, but it should never be at the expense of someone losing their sanity or their life because you want to protect your quota. You know how much money I was offered to talk about Amy's drug use? I was offered thousands of dollars after Amy passed away to talk about what she was dealing with and so many other stories that I would never tell on this site or any other site. You have to be around me to get those stories. You have to be close to me to get those stories. But when I say stories, meaning that people didn't understand a lot of what she was dealing with at that time. I was there. I'm there. So I know. And the thing is, certain things I will speak on and I can speak on. But when you don't understand the dynamics in that, you really wouldn't know. So people who would literally talk about that, I was offered thousands. People were telling me, yo, Lord, we'll put you on the front thing of our blog magazine and all this other stuff. And I told them all to go fuck themselves. Every last one of them. My Brooklyn accent. Nope, fuck out of here. I'm not doing it, period. You're not going to have me sell my friend out. I'm not doing that because y'all want a story. All they want to know, why don't we talk about the Amy that I had a chance to sit down and talk music with for 2 hours? Let's talk about that Amy. Let's talk about the Amy who made me her opening act when she didn't have to. Back to Black was #1. This was her time. You know what I'm saying? And she made me an opening act. Let's talk about that Amy. I don't want to talk about the drug use and the issues that she had and different things like that. So that shows you the moral compass that I have, because I didn't go for that. And the thing is, a lot of people who were in that position when Diddy was doing all this stuff, that seen it, that was upfront and didn't do anything. And I'm gonna say it, and people can take offense to what they want to. It is coward behavior to the 1,000th power. Because as my mother used to always tell me, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And like I said, at a young age, for me to feel like that, I can definitely say that I was definitely different from most of the people who I was around, because a lot of people didn't feel that way because they were so busy about, yeah, we getting this money. Let's get the money. I'm like, yeah, I want to get the money too. Don't get me wrong, but not at the expense of me selling myself out or seeing someone getting abused mentally, emotionally, and physically. I'm not doing that. If I have to stop and to save somebody, even if it means my own life and credibility, I do not care, because I'm going to do what's right. And that's pleasing to God and everybody around me, because people don't even realize that more doors will open for you when you choose to do right. That's why we're seeing the downfall of everybody else. Now, we're not going to knock anything that Diddy and R. Kelly and some people have done musically. It is what it is. It's never going to change. Bad Boy was an era, just like Death Row was. It was an era. But I've always said, when stories used to come out about that, and I knew that they were true, I said, well, if you're like me, grab some popcorn. They said, why you say that? Because we're going to get a front row seat to his destruction. I said that for years. Nobody, they didn't catch it. They didn't listen. Because here's the thing. I don't care how much success you have. I don't care how many platinum plaques are on your wall. If you don't right your wrongs or begin to do right when you have an opportunity to make things right, or if you just continue to just do wrong, you think that your money and your power is going to protect you, karma has your address. And best believe, when it circles and it comes back around in your circumference, it's going to hit you in ways that you would never, ever even imagine. Let karma do her thing. She's the baddest bitch of them all. Say that respectfully.
But
She's the baddest bitch, because the thing is that you can't win, and that's why you notice every day. Like, I'm like, y'all just better be glad. And then when I see guys defend the actions of these people, the first thing I say, and then you wonder why you probably have a niece that's probably dealing with this right now in your family and can't even come to you, because this is how you think.
you think we can, as fans, how do we separate, you know, 12 Play was an amazing album. The Hour album,
A
and
masterpiece. It's a
how do
masterpiece
we
album.
separate that then? The or what Diddy did on with Bad Boy. How do we can we still play the music and still celebrate it without feeling like, oh, am I celebrating this music and and um accepting what they did? Can we separate the two? Can we just enjoy the music
Um,
what the music did for us, and not feel as if we're using it as a way of standing up? You know, if I'm playing what about all about the Benjamins? Am I then trying to say no, Diddy is innocent just because I'm playing a track that I enjoy? If I'm playing 12 Play, is it me just singing, man, free R. Kelly? When that's not in my heart, but you know, can we as fans still
mhm.
enjoy and celebrate the music and not agree with these guys or what their actions and stuff?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna say this. I know. I'm glad you brought that question up. I know where you're going with this, and this is the truth. It's different for someone like me because, as an artist, as someone who's in the industry who has clearly made his stance on where he stands with the whole situation. So, if that's the case, there are so many other artists before Diddy and R. Kelly that have abused women, and I'm not saying it's right. I think over time, certain things, the average fan is not going to feel that way, especially a female, because some women who will attach that to the person, no matter what, no matter how good the music was. Once they see how ugly your shit is and who you really are, for some fans, it's a no-brainer. I'm like, I'm not fucking with nothing you do. I don't want to hear your music. I don't want to hear none of that. And then mind you, and they have, and as a human, they have every right to feel the way that they feel. I would never tell somebody, "Well, no, you shouldn't put that to the music." I'm like, if that's how you feel, that's the way you should feel. I'm different because it doesn't. That part of it doesn't really get at me like that. Even though like I said, I obviously made my stance, so nobody can come at me. I made my stance, publicly and personally. So the thing is, for me, I could still turn an ear to that and just be like, okay, well, the music is there, it is what it is. But the thing of the matter is that, just like with R. Kelly, it took time. Remember, when it happened to R. Kelly, it was that whole thing going on. They even took his music off the streaming platforms, and then eventually they brought it back. Like 2 or 3 years later, I think it came back online again. So the thing is,
Because they didn't want to lose out to their money. We can move
yeah,
them out the way and still play classics
still
and
plays
still make.
classic music because there's so many people. I mean, look, we ain't talking about Billy Preston, who was a pedophile, by the way. Truth is truth. That's not a rumor.
Yeah.
Billy Preston, genius, the fifth Beatle. Respectfully speaking, he was a pedophile. So if we could still listen to "Will It Go Around in Circles," if we could still listen to that and not really think about, this is a dude that preyed on young boys. He preyed on young boys. Respectfully, I'm not saying respectfully. I'm not trying to downplay his legacy or anything like that, but that's what he ended up getting arrested for. He did it for years, and then in the '80s, they finally popped him. They finally got him. You remember that? Do your research. I know you know, but for people that don't know, do your research. It's documented. This is not no hidden shit. This is documented. So the thing is that none of the other people shun him or his talent or what he's been to the musical landscape. But in the realm of what we're dealing with now and the kind of society that we live in today, some people don't give a fuck about the legacy. It's once you do some shit like that, we're looking at you like, really? I don't even want to hear you. I don't even want to hear the sound of your voice. And some people are like that. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think we're very divided right now. I'm just gonna say, for long story short, we're very divided on that because some people still feel like they can do that. Me, because of who I am spiritually and mentally, I could detach myself because as a producer and a writer and an artist, I was already connected to the musical part of it before I even knew who they were. So as a
Yeah.
man, I'm looking at him like, well, dude, you got some issues you need to work out. And it's disgusting what you did. I'm not defending nothing that you did as a man. So as a man, I'm looking at them like, disgusting. But when it comes to the music part of it, I'm like, well, look, we would be stupid to sit here and not deny and deny your genius. I mean, everybody knows that. We know how classic. R. Kelly probably had the greatest 8-album run there ever could be. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So the thing is that I'm never gonna not downplay that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, but the
Yeah.
thing is that in the times that we're living in, it's no longer about how good your music is. Your moral compass is the most important thing. So especially when it comes to our women, because let's keep it honest,
Yeah.
women buy the most records, not men. So once you piss the women off,
Yeah.
I'm being real. I mean, mind you, guys that make mistakes, they do stuff or something came out or whatever. That's different. But when you're abusing women and nothing's being done about it, like when I told you earlier about dirt, and you sweep the dirt under the rug for too long, what happens?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing right now. Women have always had it, but even more now in this society that we live in today, 2024. This ain't the 80s, this ain't the 90s no more. Women are speaking up more. Women have always spoken up even back then, but
They're
now
speaking up more.
with the platforms that we have and all these different things that are happening, and then now that they know that there are men like me and like you that give them platform to speak that are going to protect them, they're even more courageous. And again, me as a father, can you imagine being a father of 3 amazing, daughters, and their father don't stand up for women? Can you imagine that? I mean, think about that in your mind. I couldn't. That's why you can never see me, and it's not even a no-brainer for me. Those are my children, and like I said, I got 1 son, but I have 3 daughters, and I have a granddaughter and 2 grandsons. So teaching my grandsons and my son how to respect women because they've seen how I treated their mother.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they know. And then teaching them, I don't care, y'all gonna get into arguments, y'all may get into, I said, but you remember, that may be your older sister, but that's your sister. That may be a younger sister, but that's still your sister. That's your cousin. When y'all out and about, I don't care what kind of argument y'all get into. Protect your sister, protect your cousin. Because if we're not being taught that, we're not going to know. And that's what people don't know. But like I said, it's mental, and it's spiritual, and it's emotional.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't take care of those things and the physical things happen, what are we going to do? You're going to allow somebody to get their head beat in because they coughed or because they said something that you didn't like. If you read Tina Turner's book, forget the movie. If you read Tina Turner's book, she said Ike wasn't like that in the beginning. He wasn't. Ike wasn't like that. Then once he got into cocaine, and keep in mind, Ike Turner did grow up in an abusive home, as you know. So of course, hurt people.
Yeah, hurt others. People. Yeah, yeah.
So, and especially if you saw your mother or your sister getting abused and you didn't do nothing about it, and you thought that was the way to love on women or to treat women, that's your mentality. So we can all sit there, and I say that because I'm close to Ike Turner's family. His granddaughter is one of my very good friends. And the thing is that I'm saying that to say is simply because the version that they got their grandfather is not the version that the world knows. Because years later, he's a much calmer Ike. He's not the same Ike Turner he was. So eventually he did grow. But no matter how much he may be viewed to his grandkids and his great grandchildren, the mental world image of who Ike Turner is the rock and roll genius who beat the shit out of Tina Turner.
Yeah, it's funny, when I saw the Cassie video, I just saw What's Love Got to Do with it. And not that I just saw it, it just threw me back to the movie, because that was the first time I'd ever seen somebody just being Lawrence Fishburne on Angela Bassett in the movie, and that video just reminded me of that. Like, wow,
yeah,
what Tina.
And that's just the movie. That's just the movie. Read the book. The book. I tell like most situations, I always tell fans in any scenario when it comes to biopics or autobiography.
There's only so much they can do.
Read the book.
Yeah.
Read the book first. If they have a book, read the book. That's what I tell people when people talk about the Jacksons. I said, I'm close to some of the Jacksons. I'm close to some of the Gordys. I know the stories. I know the real history. But I also tell people, read Jermaine's book and read Michael's autobiography. That's the truth. All right there. All these other books that's coming out about, I was around the family. You may have been around them. You may have saw some stuff, but I'm never going to go with the outside realm, no matter how close they are, because you're not going to tell that story. Who's going to tell Jermaine about his little brother? Hello? They lived together. Michael didn't do everything he didn't do this work by himself. They were all together. All 6 brothers rehearsed, performed, lived, toured, breathed, recorded together. So how you going to tell Jermaine about his little brother?
Yeah.
That's why I be looking at people like, oh, Jermaine. I'm like, shut the hell up about Jermaine. I said, Jermaine can write any book that he wants to about his family, and he didn't say nothing bad. He's actually uplifting his family. He's telling people what the world doesn't know. And that's the whole point when people tell their stories. Because again, when Cassie spoke, some people just like, she just want the money. And then first of all, the first giveaway was, why do you think Diddy gave her the money? You didn't think about that? I said, there's your validation right there. Because
Mm-hmm.
guess what? He knew in his heart at some point the truth is going to come out.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
not only did it come out, but now there's more stories coming out. Like I said, the downfall of it all goes back to what I said earlier. All the wrong that you do, karma is taking notes on all of this, whether it's 5 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. I don't give a shit. Karma is sitting there with her legs crossed, like, okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And what's going to happen? Everything is
Yeah.
going to come. And what's that? What's that? DeBarge song? And the walls come tumbling down. That's listen. That I mean, not to make light of it because it's funny too, but at the same time, that's why I said in one of my posts that you read when I put up the post about, I said that's why I've always said this to people. You better make sure your nose is clean.
Yeah.
You gotta make sure your nose is clean. If you don't, if your moral compass is not clear or clean, you'll
Yeah.
never know.
And just ending on this, I'm one of those people that always thinks about and is important about he who's without sin cast the first stone. And what happens is a lot of people who still have skeletons in the closet, but to defect it, they're like this. So it's important for all of us just to make sure that look, we support victims, we support them. We're being a lot
Amen.
more curious and looking out, and let the outcome of all what's happening be a wake up call for us to see if our brother, our sister, our neighbor, our aunt is going through stuff like that, and we turn a blind eye. But just to take it to a more positive stuff, I know that if anyone hasn't seen your show, it is a full octane energy with your band.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
probably
you.
best placed to think about because you mirror more of old school Troop than the New Edition. When you look at the two groups, so Troop in their heyday, when they came out with Attitude, I think
Yeah.
that's their best album. And you think of New Edition that came out with Heartbreak. How would you rate Troop as a performance, as performance compared to what New Edition do?
See, you know me too well. I love you. Well, first of all, I mean, everybody knows. Shout out to my big brothers, Troop. We call them the Pasadena boys. Listen, I mean, anybody that's seen my show or seen some of the things that I've done where I do my live talks on IG, y'all know how I feel about Troop too. It's the same way. And the thing is that I've always broken down when people always ask me, like, what's the best way to describe your dance style? Because the thing is, it's such an accumulation of all of my dance heroes. And of course, New Edition and Troop being of the top five, pretty much. And the thing is, I've always said that when it comes to New Edition, it's the complex, intricate, smooth, but still rugged. Troop, pure aggressiveness. They can be smooth when they want to be, but Troop was just aggressive when it came to their movements. And for me personally, I'm one of the few artists that proudly combined both styles in my thing, along with the James Brown and Mars Ain't the Time and people who I studied. You see our stage show, me and my guys, we put all that in one bowl, and that's what you get. You get a whole bunch of stuff, and then we put that Brooklyn swag on it. Because a lot of Prince fans would come up and tell us, like, we see the essence of Prince and all that stuff, but we also see Tony M, Damon D, and Kirk of the Game Boys, which was Prince's group in MPG. Said we see y'all do all the stuff that those guys do, and y'all combine it in one thing with the Temptations and the Dramatics and Blue Magic. So Troop and New Edition, because they represent my era the best when it comes to dancing, in terms of the aggressive part of it, the complex, intricate part of it, like being able to slide up 1 minute, I'm over here, he's over here. We go down at one point, we do a domino effect. We combining all of what we love. And I'm gonna say that aspect that what all three of us have in common, L.A.W, Troop, and New Edition. We hood boys. There's a way that we do moves that people attach themselves to because we all from the street. That rugged part of who we are. That's the street essence of New Edition, Troop, and L.A.W. Because no matter how we do it, it's aggressive, even down to the vocals. Because we're going to give you that whole full force attitude and the way that we come across the thing. Because it's either go hard or go home. I'm not coming to play with y'all. When people pay money to come see a show, and because I play instruments in between that, because I do everything in addition to letting my talents be on display, but people come to see a show. That's why I have only two. I only do 2 battles in my whole show because I want to give people. I show people my vocal range. They're like, no, he sings for real from church. Sing down. I give them that part. Oh, he got vocals. I'm not, hello, of course. Once we done with that, then it's back to the. I'm trying to give you everything that it is, and while there's every breath of my body in me, as I still stand here in the best of health, with incredible knees. My knees are not failing me. As long as I have all this, I'm going to continue to represent the legacies of New Edition, Troop, High Five, the Dramatics, the Spinners. You know there's no more Spinners left, right? I'm actually there's only one. John Everett's the only one left. All the original guys are gone. Temptations. You know what I mean? As yet, all the groups who can dance, all the groups who have moves. Different people. Like I represent that when I come on stage, and people know that when I come on stage, I'm bringing all of that with me. The Jacksons, the Mars and the Top, Kids on the Block. I'm bringing all of that energy with me to represent that. So long story short, that's if I have to break down the difference between both of those guys, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, as I said, I always remember growing up watching Troop, and it felt like there were 5 dancers who could sing. I mean, and that's a compliment to say that I saw them as dancers first who had amazing vocals, because they were doing, there's not one person out there who wouldn't say that they loved watching. Remember Breaking, Tobo Nose, and that back in the 80s.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, that was a massive film, and so it felt like as if Troop were the ones who just had that in them, that they just. I mean, they were just doing stuff on live TV. I mean, they were on Assembly Hall like I think 7 times doing their stuff,
putting on the hits.
Yeah, they had the hits, but they were doing the Michael Jackson stuff. They were doing the Worm, the whatever it is, the Running Man. They would and then come back vocally strong, and unlike New Edition, who were precision, they had the whole Temptation stuff. It's just true, but like street dancers doing that and stuff. And it's not, if you speak to any of them, John or Steve, they will always say that they were inspired by New Edition, so they don't even think that they're on that level.
No, but correction on one part. You forget, with the exception of Johnny Gill, New Edition are street dancers. That's the whole point. Ricky, Biv, and Ralph and Bobby. If you look at the video, She Gives Me a Bang. Look at the video. That's how they all came together in the beginning, besides sports and all that stuff in terms of music, and especially Bobby Brown, because Bobby Brown used to travel to New York. He said he would get on the bus going to New York. He would pick up all the latest pop and lock moves from my city and come back to Boston, and they would all get in the huddle. So they were street dancers too. It's just the difference is that once New Edition got signed, Maurice Starr, being the genius that he was able to create a sound that allowed the choreography to reign sovereign, that can allow them to still do the Temptation sort of, see Brooke Payne, and let's throw Brooke Payne in there, because Brooke Payne is the one that came up with the whole synergy. Said what we're going to do is we're going to combine the old school methods of his favorite group, which is Blue Magic. The technical part of what Blue Magic did, because Blue Magic was very technical among all the other 70s groups. And we're going to combine that with the new school, that what Ronnie and those guys were doing with breakdancing. So the whole thing is that they were already doing that before they became a group. The same way how John and Steve and Reggie, rest in peace, was the best dancer in Troop. Reggie's the Ronnie. Reggie was the Ronnie DeVoe of Troop. He was the best dancer. And the thing is that aggressiveness is what you see. So that's why I want to correct that, because New Edition was already doing stuff like that. So of course the influence is already the combining component to them. But that's why we talk about both groups in the same sentence, because they all started the same way I did. I started as a breakdown, but unlike them, except for probably John, me and John have a lot in common, because I was singing in church first. The dancer came from me at 6 or 7, because like all young black kids across America, name a dancer or a singer that Michael Jackson and Jackson's didn't influence. We all looked up to Mike. That's what we want to be. That's what we want to. And then once Prince and everybody else came through, then it's like, okay, then we discovered the James Brown ones. That's the man. That's the blueprint. Let's take that and put it all. When you see the video for the live version of I'm Not Suit from the Arsenio Hall show with Troop, what's that one thing they doing during the bridge?
Yeah, there's from Smooth
I
Criminal.
know. And then Steve takes a vocal break and does the James Brown. I'm like, see, that's all intertwined. He's like, why can't they leave me? They say I'm ego tripping and my mind is slipping. See what I mean? Like you have to, and then like you said earlier, going back to what you said earlier, that's how you know when you come see my show. For the last 25, 30 years, I've been a singer, performer, rapper, whatever you know. Because everybody knows, in the words of Prince, ain't no Memorex. My microphone is on. These vocals are real. Because I learned from the Temptations, Troop, and New Edition, no matter how hard you step, David Ruffin would go into a split, throw the mic in the air, come back, and David Ruffin vocals were still on point. When people be like, how can you do that at the same time? It's called breath control. It's called rehearsal. A lot of these guys don't do that now. They don't rehearse no more. I mean, some of them do, but a lot of them don't rehearse no more. So for me, it's easy for me in Troop and New Edition. I saw all of them in their heyday when they first were out. You know what I'm saying? So I knew, I'm like, there was nobody singing background vocals behind the curtain. The microphones were on. You had to know how to be, you had to be able to do all that shit and sweat and still keep your damn suit jacket on, at least for the first 4 or 5 songs. And it's hot on stage. The lights are hitting the back of your head. They don't understand. I lived the tour life, so I know. So this is what I'm saying more so about, I'm glad that you brought that point up, because people don't understand that there are artists like me and a few others, we still hold true to the legacy of New Edition and Troop, because they did it. There was no cheat code to their success. You dig what I'm saying? Look at the My Heart video. You know, I mean, people don't even get. I'm like, you know, it's like you and your boy Errol still step like that 30 years later. I said, you damn right. What you think? Look, Ronnie even said that on stage. Ronnie was like, the only difference between us nowadays is like, of course, we breathe a little harder because we're older now. I said, but at the same time, we know that we can't let our fans down because they want to see the steps that made us famous. So we're going to still do the same steps, maybe a little slower, but that's okay. We're going to kill it. We're still going to kill it. But they've earned it. And the thing is that it's still aggressive. So when I see Troop doing Spread My Wings, they still do the original routine for Spread My Wings. I know that whole routine. I'm like, just to see them on the floor during that one part and they get up and go like that. I'm like, I know the whole damn routine. So for me, it's like, I get hyped just to see. I look to see. We was hanging out at Chucky Booker's Unsung party. Like,
oh yeah. I didn't realize you knew. I didn't realize you knew Chucky and DOA because I saw a picture of the three of you together. And
man, those are my mentors and my big brothers. So as much as the cosigns I've gotten from all of my heroes, they are in my top 10 of the ones where it really means the most to me. Because as you know, Chucky and DOA's pedigree as producers, musicians, these are the men, and Kipper Jones, by the way, another one of my mentors. These are the guys who I looked up to as producers, songwriters, vocalists, arrangers, because I knew in addition to me being an artist and being in front of the scenes, I wanted to be behind the scenes too. So to have the respect of my West Coast idols that I looked up to, I used to read the line. Anytime I saw their name in the liner notes of any album, I knew it's going to be dope. And to get that respect to be, and we're working on some special stuff, by the way. We're working on some stuff now. And the thing is that to get that respect from those guys who played behind New Edition, worked with Troop, they were, see all that stuff. So when you see me in those pictures and stuff like that, when we hanging out and after the pictures and videos are run, because that was me at 13 years old telling my mother, I'm gonna meet those guys one day. Like, of course, we knew that. I told my mother that up front. I said, I'm gonna meet them guys one day. I'm gonna work with so and so one day. So to be in a room with DOA and DOA and Chucky Booker giving me my flowers, to be in a dressing room with SWV, my big sisters, who I got a history with as well, for them to be giving me my flowers in their dressing room in Brooklyn, you know how I mean, that was emotional for me. I'm like, wow, man, to be seen by people who I came up with and who I studied and who I looked up to, and then even with all our connecting forces in the industry, you know, it's a blessing, man. So when you bring up names like that and you see the connection between all of them, but even with me being incorporated somehow because of our stories, it's amazing for me. So to be in a room with all those guys and to get that respect, but I flew all the way from New York to pay them homage because I'm like, listen, y'all see my shows, y'all know, y'all see my interviews. Anytime they ask me who your influences are, they're like, y'all know, that's a long ass list. We'll be here for 2 hours. I said, but you know, that New Edition and Troop is always in the top 20, top 15 percentile, because when you see me perform and sing and rap and dance and play the way I do, it's because I'm living up to represent the legacy of all of my heroes. And of course, Troop and New Edition being among that top percentile. So, and DOA and Chucky as well.
Yeah, I mean, DOA was one of the most passionate interviews I had, and then Chucky, met up with him in London for about 3 hours. No interview, just chat, and then when he was out,
just chilling with him, right?
We just chilled and talked a lot of, what was, just the industry stuff, which we didn't capture on camera. And then 2 days later, when he was with Lionel Richie, he was out in maybe like Belgium or so. We did another 3-hour interview where he could say some of the stuff, and then he's back in. But just as we finish up, though, I had I had the guys from Stetsasonic on, and I didn't realize that you teamed up with them to do Stet's anniversary. Yes. Did they turn down your vocals or did you sing in a high pitched voice? Because
no, they turn on my vocals. That's my register. I'm a tenor. I'm what you. Let me explain it real quick for those who don't know. I'm what you call a floating tenor. I have mid-range, and obviously, if you heard me sing before, definitely I have a high-range falsetto with a few octaves every now and then on a good day, of course, when I'm able to do certain things. But also the distinction of being a floating tenor, because I also can sing bass and baritone as well. And the thing is, in any timbre part of my voice, depending on what the song calls for. Now, we're talking about the great, my bass idol and singer, Raphael Sadiq. You dig what I'm saying? So to have to sing in that register and to do that, and of course, shout out to my big sister Toni Minaj, as y'all know her for her work with Lisa and a whole lot of other people in the industry. When you get a chance, you should bring her on your show too, because she got some stories as well. Our voices blend so well together. So the harmony that you hear in the timbre that you hear in those voices, because we were just stacking harmonies left and right. She would go in and do two, and I go in and do two. Like, you gonna do another one? I do another one. I do another one. I do another one. We were having so much fun. Me and Toni had so much fun in the studio recording our vocal parts for the chorus. So that's not no vocals turned down. That's literally me and her stacking each other's harmonies. Absolutely. Okay. That's my voice.
So
I could be rugged when I want to. I could be rugged when I want to be. I could be smooth when I want to be. That's the gift of being a versatile singer. I don't have to fit into anybody's conglomerate. I do what the song calls for. In that particular case, it ain't my place to be trying to stand out and sing above everybody else. Do you know what today is? It's our anniversary. It's real. It's subtle. I don't have to scream. You know what I mean? I don't have to be, do you know? I don't have to do that. That's not really, it's not what the song calls for. A lot of singers don't know about tone and placement. When it's your turn to shine and they need some ad-libs, different story. Then I'm gonna give you church. I'm gonna give you some runs. I'm gonna give you some riffs. But if we're just singing a chorus, it's subtle. And I have to match my sister, because my sister, Toni Minaj, is the same way. I matched her subtlety. Do you know what today is? See how smooth that is? That's smooth. I gotta match. I'm gonna sing over her. No, we're blending the harmonies. Gotta blend, baby. It's the blend. Gotta blend. So to what you said in reference to that, my big brothers, East New York, Brownsville. I mean, I don't know if they shared that on the show, but our history is crazy, because Daddy-O's son and I went to the same high school, Boys and Girls High, Brooklyn. So when Daddy-O used to pull up to the schools, you gotta remember, at this point, Stetsasonic was already either broken up as a group or they were all doing different solo things. Now, this is 92, 93. I'm the only one, me and my DJ and my best friend, we the only ones that knew who Daddy-O was. The rest of the guys was like, we don't remember them. But if you knew hip-hop, and his son would be hanging out with us, he's like, well, you might know my dad. Like, who's your dad? He said, Daddy. I said, yo, people don't know. Your dad produced all the Audio 2 stuff, Queen Latifah. See, I knew their history. So one day, Daddy-O pulled up in a car, and we went to the car. I was like, yo, Daddy-O. I was like, yo, I got the last Blood, Sweated, No Tears album. And he was just really, he said, Lord, I remember when you came up to my car that day. I said, you remember that? He said, yeah. He said, your energy hasn't changed. You're a grown man with your Scorpio energy is still the same way it was when I met you when you was a teenager. He said, and it's crazy how that lifelong friendship that we have. Not to mention, Bobby Simmons, my incredible big brother, when he used to throw shows at this Flavor Videos back in the day, when he had a popular show called Flavor Videos, that was one of the most popular shows in New York City for videos. Him and my uncle Kevin, who's a street ball legend, my uncle Kevin, they used to hang out at the parties together. So when he found that K-Rock was my uncle, he was like, it makes sense now. He said, y'all tailors, man. Y'all sports and music. I could be around y'all guys all day. So all those years, we built the foundation. And because you can see Sonic's obvious influence on me, because they are the first hip-hop band. I'm a musician. Even though I'm a real MC, I'm a singer and a musician first. Rap and dancing came right in between all that. But the thing is, Sonic was the first of their kind. Before the Roots, before anybody started using live bands and hip hop, with the exception of the Sugar Hill Gang musicians, Sonic is the first hip hop live band. So direct influence on me with everything else. When I got that call to appear on their album, man, you know, again, another one for the Law Platinum resume, man. That's a proud project I'm happy to be a part of. Shout out to my big brothers for even thinking about me. You know, it doesn't go unnoticed. And another shout out to my incredible badass lyrical baby brothers, Rusty Jukes, because Rusty said I inspired him when he was coming up as an MC in the game before he got with Boot Camp Click. So the fact that me, him, and my other legendary big brother, Smooth the Hustler, these are all hip hop guys, those don't know underground hip hop from New York City. These are all the guys I ran the street with. We all come from the same area, Brownsville, Crown Heights. So the fact that all three of us, me, Rusty Jukes, and Smooth the Hustler, are on a Sonic album. How crazy, and we all grew up together. How crazy is that? That you get three Brooklyn guys that looked up to Sonic, who helped put Brooklyn on the map, and we're doing this recording. So again, man, shout out to Sonic.
Yeah, they've got a new album out, guys. So search that out and stuff. But definitely, Lord, it's been a privilege having you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I mean this is you know, when you know, if we'll do this again. You know, probably after
Let me know, man.
Once we'll check your schedules out. If people want to follow you on social media, where can they reach out to you?
Okay, let's start with the first rundown. Instagram at Planet 12 Law. Instagram at Planet 12 Stories. Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it, at Planet 12 Law. I'm also on Facebook under Lawrence Law Worrell. Also have my Facebook group page, which is Law and the Planet 12 Movement. That's my band for people who don't know. And of course, my YouTube page, which will be debuting, well, re-debuting. I did it over. So my YouTube page, I have two YouTube pages. I have Law Planet 12 and I have Planet 12 Law. And of course, in addition to my social medias, there's also my music is available on all streaming platforms under L*A*W, and asterisk is a star for those that don't know. That's that's a star. So on.
You said A.
Yep, A*A*W. Everybody call them star. Everybody forget it. That's called an asterisk. That's a computer nerd in me. I'm sorry, y'all, but it's Law Star A*W. You can find it on all streaming platforms, which is iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify. You know, wherever streaming platforms are available.
So, are we saying are these the two planets? 12 Law, and then is Law.
Well, not that one, because it definitely wouldn't be, because the other ones wouldn't let you use the star. So it definitely wouldn't. I have nothing under L*A*W. That's just for the music. So if you go to Spotify, you type in my name, make sure you type in L*A*W.
Okay, but I guess if somebody just comes to your, if we just go to your Instagram or Facebook.
Oh yeah, the link is in my bio.
All the links
all my connecting
on the
platforms are there. Absolutely.
Okay, but guys, we want to thank you, all the guys who've been tuning in and watching and stuff.
Thank you so much.
Just did about 2.5 hours of being. We started off with New Edition and went to New Kids on the Block. We managed to speak a little bit about just protecting women in any industry, not just in music and entertainment.
Any industry.
And and just a little debate on Troop and New Edition, but definitely, I mean, this is yeah, it's good that we did this live so people can tune in and be able to have this and stuff. But we will get, yeah, we'll after you go see them New Edition back in July. You let me know if there's any difference. Um, One person that you mentioned that we probably and over the past couple of weeks people have mentioned him and he doesn't get his acknowledgement is Leon Silvers, and it may be someone who hopefully we may get a chance to be able to talk to him and introduce him to a generation of people who might have heard the whispers and stuff he did at Solar, even some of the stuff he did with Teddy with Blackstreet, and be able to think, actually, this guy's done more to R&B, but that we've not really known, and so hopefully that was somebody that we can try and bring on to.
I was going to say, if the next one we do, we can make it about the impact of Solar Records and Leon Silvers. And because I've been working with Leon for the last 2 years, and of course, knowing the history way before we got together, that's a show by itself because there's so many variables. I mean, if it wasn't for him, there would be no L.A. Reid, Babyface, Teddy Riley, and definitely no Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. If you've seen every award that Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis have gotten, they always make sure that Leon Silvers get the acknowledgement for helping them out, in addition to Clarence Avon. So definitely get him on the show, but that's another point of reference for the next show that I do with you.
Yeah, definitely. But anyway, guys, it's about midnight here in the UK, so
which is crazy.
I gotta get up.
It's only 7:30 here. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've got to get up early for work. But you know, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Law. Just as I said, so check him out on Facebook and Instagram, and be able to get his music as well. And we definitely, hopefully, you enjoyed the chat and our debate and everything that we did. And we'll definitely see you guys soon. All right.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you. I love you, bro. Thank you for even having me.
Yeah.